So here's the thing. If everybody's working for the weekend, the question is, from the Colts standpoint, which players are going to spend the weekend working? And which ones are going to be spending the weekend just standing on the sidelines, tapping the toes, singing along? Josh Downs, is he going to go? Ryan Kelly, is he going to go? Michael Pittman Jr., Jonathan Taylor, E.J. Speed, Anthony Richardson. We got a full list of players to keep an eye on over the course of today as we get you set for the Colts and Dolphins coming up on Sunday. But that is just one of the storylines we'll be discussing today on a jam-packed Friday edition of Query & Company. How are you? My name is Jake Query. Eddie Garrison, Jimmy Cook, the members of the company. Eddie, of course, is the CEO of the company.
Hello.
Jimmy Cook, the president.
Hi there.
On a day in which, let me tell you what took place last night.
You went
I
to bed
found
early, and now you got rid of that tickle/cough finally?
What if both those are wrong? No early bedtime or the cough is fixed.
One is TBD.
Ooh.
We'll see. I hope you didn't jinx it. I'm loaded up right now on the meds because I'm going tonight to watch Purdue shock the world against Oregon. So I got to be primed and ready to go. I've got 15 tailgates I've been invited to. Like, we got a whole –
Man.
Here's the thing, though. I don't think people are inviting me. They know that Shannon's my plus one, and so therefore they're like, hey.
So they're inviting Shannon.
You know
Correct.
what they also probably think, too? They probably think there's the off chance that John's also going to be there because
That is correct,
Shannon will be
yes.
there, so they think
That's
that
right.
JMV might make an appearance as
That's
well.
right. They're like, oh, it's Shannon's plus one, right? So tonight I look forward to that. But last night I went to the Pacers-Hornets preseason game. And, on a side note, in the first quarter of that game, Brandon Miller had the quietest 18-point quarter of all time. All of a sudden I look up and I'm like, he has 18?
Oh, yeah, he was on fire.
He's a good player. But
Very good.
I'm watching the game, and I don't remember at what point in the game it was, whether it was halftime or somewhere, but I'm back away from the court, and I see a television screen. And I thought, well, the Guardians are kind of a fun story, and our friend John Fanta that does Big East coverage has been he's in love with the Guardians, and
He's a Cleveland man, really. You got to respect all his Twitter videos about Cleveland sports.
The Guardians, he has this overly romanticized, poetic story about how they're like the plucky underdog, incredible. We should pull up, Eddie, see if you can find John Fanta's video that he posted last night where he's in the dark. I think he's in an Uber on his way home from the game. But we'll play a little bit of it off of the X-Post Twitter last night when he's driving home and he's talking about the game, and he's doing it as if he's reading a Shakespearean love novel.
Do you remember the last time we had him on the program? He was in his home. He was in the John Fanta office, and
he had Cleveland Rocks playing in the background.
Yeah.
He's a Cleveland guy through and through.
Mm-hmm.
But at any rate, so the Guardians are, and it's weird to say about, because Cleveland's a bigger market than people give them credit, but in the ranks of the remaining teams in the playoffs, the Guardians are the underdog story. They're the small market. They're the team with the longest drought. And so I thought, well, this is who I'll get behind. Each year I kind of pick a team and I go, okay, that'll be a good story. And I thought the Guardians would be a good story. And I'm walking back out to the game. And I look up, and the Guardians are down 5-3, and some guy grounds into a double play in the ninth inning. And so I go out and I sit down and I said, yeah, the Guardians are down to their final out, and then they're going to go down 3-0, and this thing's over with. And then later I look at my phone and I go, oh, well, that's a pleasant surprise. What a rally. And I thought, I'll bet Jimmy loved being able to witness live the thrill that is playoff baseball of – and the Guardians almost did this to the Cubs, if you remember. The Cubs, when the Cubs and the Guardians were then the Indians were in the World Series, my parents, my parents are diehard Cubs fans because my dad took his first job in the steel business on the south side of Chicago in the late 60s, and my mom already had my oldest sister and was pregnant with my middle sister during the 69 Cubs season where they had their, the 69 Cubs, and then they had the epic collapse, which allowed the Mets to win the pennant. But my mom would sit at home and watch the Cubs in the daytime, because she was a young mother. and because the Cubs, all the games were in the daytime. So they became huge Cubs fans. So my sisters and I, when the Cubs were in the World Series in 2016, and it looked like it was certain they were going to win, we literally had a text where we're like, we need to go to Mom and Dad's house. We need to go there. And right when my oldest sister walked into the house is right when Cleveland hit a home run, and my dad kicked her out and was like, that's it, leave. And she had to leave. I was allowed to stay. But I thought about you last night. Now, here's John Fanta opining on and waxing poetic, just a little bit of it to give you the drama last night, talking about his beloved Guardians.
They never quit. They never die. They just fight, even when it looks over.
Okay. Okay. I don't know if he swears in this. I hope not, right, Eddie? Okay. So you get the feel for it, right? Like it's just overly, but, and then he does it when they hit home runs and everything else. So it was a cool moment, but it took away from the fact that I was watching a preseason game that the Pacers looked fairly lackluster, if we're going to be honest. But then a ferocious comeback right towards the end, and they go into overtime. I'm not going to lie, we had actually left by then. But
nobody wants overtime.
The question is this: did the Pacers last night? Not that there are big questions about them, but instead of saying like they're answering questions heading into the regular season, are there any new questions that are being created about the Pacers? Are there any areas of concern, is a lack of a better word, but this is now, it's not a concern to me, but I can understand how it would be for somebody if you were nitpicking, if you're worried about, like, say, getting off to slow starts because it's 2 games in a row. I don't really buy into that too much because it is preseason, and I think they're trying probably different looks and rotations and et cetera. But Jimmy doesn't give you any cause for – concern's the wrong word, but let's say pause of instantly rolling out, boom, top 4, top 5 seed.
No, I mean, not really. Like, that second quarter was a bit frustrating to me, but they have moments that all throughout the regular season. I mean, you give up 36 in a quarter, and it's you in the NBA, that's not an insurmountable deficit by any means, but for a team that wants to get better defensively.
You weren't lying about this chair. You told me to take this chair, and then you're right.
It's
this thing's.
I'm fearful that I'm going
like
to
a
tip over.
Now, this other one slants downward. Which one did you take?
I kept the one that I had. I offered you this one, and then you said it seemed like this one was fine that you were in. But you have the tilt forward chair or the tilt world chair.
What's Andy Sweeney doing in the morning to these chairs? Do we know?
Reenacting the Beast, I think.
Really? I mean, it's like a tilt-a-whirl in here. Anyway, as you were.
No, I mean, that was always my biggest concern with the big quarters last year. And this is a team that wants to be about middle of the pack defensively. So you're going to have that every now and again on a nightly basis. But too often when they were losing games, it was because they fell asleep or appeared to take a quarter off or just got massively outplayed. They wind up winning this game. Again, woo. Like, you have to forgive me, but I'm not going to bring energy for an overtime preseason win. Like, that's great. But like you mentioned, you guys had departed by that point. I would imagine most Pacers fans on a Thursday for a preseason game.
The crowd was definitely bigger for the Memphis game. It was I mean, Zach Edey, but it was definitely bigger for the Memphis.
So, no, I mean, there's still too many bodies in this final preseason game from a rotation standpoint. It's tough to make a full evaluation of what they are going to be outside of going back off of what they were last year and the growth that's still present there for familiarity with Pascal Siakam, with guys like Obi Toppin, who's now been here a full year, and where expectations are for them. But no, if you're asking me, has anything that happened last night or anything that happened this preseason left me with any more questions? No. Are there still questions, though, that I had going into the season? Yes. What's Jarris Walker's role going to look like? Is he going to actually get more playing time as a small forward, or is he going to once again find himself waiting for opportunities? Is Benedict Mathurin really your 6th man of the year candidate, or are you going to at some point, / is he going to earn at some point starting positioning on this roster? Those are all questions that I still have going forward, but nothing they've done in the preseason to this point has made me sit there and say, man, I have more questions than answers for a team that I still think is going to be a top 4 team in the East.
The guy that's, and this is obviously stating the obvious, the interesting thing about the Pacers in terms of figuring out where some players slot in is, and this is a good thing about this guy that I'm about to say. When you look at different players that you're trying to figure out, Benedict Mathurin being one, probably Jarris Walker being one, and you're trying to find open lanes where you can get them reps or where they work into the rotation, the player that is the one that kind of creates the curveball for all of this, because I don't think a year ago, at this time a year ago, I just don't know that we realized how much this player was going to be an immovable object within rotations. And a guy that admittedly can play a couple of different positions, but I mean this in a good way. You just can't have him off the floor. A guy that has worked his way into like permanent rotation spot on the floor, and so therefore when you're trying to find out how to put out different combinations, he's the one that you're like, well, but with that combination, that would require this guy to maybe get off the floor to get these 5-on-1. Andrew Nembhard is the guy that no matter what you do, you have to find a way for Andrew Nembhard to be on the floor. And I know that sounds crazy, but we just didn't think that a year ago, did we? You knew that Halliburton was going to be a guy. What's that?
I thought you were going to go with Ben Shepherd.
Shepherd as well has played well, but I think we know that Shepherd is a guy that is going to be. I do like the fact that Shepherd can be a spot starter if injuries, require him to go in there. But I think we know where his spot is and where his minutes come from.
Nembhard's role got redefined last year. To your point,
yes, totally. He went from Shepherd, to the Nembhard that we have now,
correct.
Right? I mean, he went from the guy that was like kind of a spot Swiss Army knife fill in. I mean, I remember I mentioned it yesterday. In his rookie year, there was that game in Los Angeles where Halliburton was out, Mathurin I think was out, and Nembhard goes in and goes for I think 32 and hits essentially the game winner. And you kind of thought to yourself, well, that's cool, but he's getting minutes just because like there's no other, or he's getting points because somebody has to score.
Right.
And maybe and then you look at it and you go, no, this guy is a legitimate, just natural, very calm player that can score different ways on the floor.
I compare him to Brock Purdy. Because Brock Purdy has all these weapons in San Francisco. He's got Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey when he was healthy. And same thing goes with Andrew Nembhard with all the pieces the Pacers have. All he has to do is not screw it up and just be a good player. And he's a very good player. And the tie that I make to the two of them is that they've each had a lot of reps in college to where they were put in situations where they got uncomfortable. They could grow from that. They overcame adversity to get to where they are. Of course, Nembhard coming from Gonzaga has the championship pedigree and the background of playing in big games. And I think that really helped him because he was never the guy on any of those Gonzaga teams. Yeah. So now he just walks into a Pacers organization now that has turned into this selfless team-first team and no I at all.
Here's what it feels like with Andrew Nembhard. Andrew Nembhard feels like a guy that, let's just say for the sake of discussion, Andrew Nembhard grew up where? He's Canadian, correct?
Yes.
So did he grow up in Toronto?
Yes.
I believe so.
Or suburban Toronto? So let's just say for the sake of argument that when he was a kid growing up, everybody at his school was a diehard fan of the Toronto Blue Jays, and Andrew Nembhard wanted to be different, so he selected Cleveland as his baseball team. Okay? For the sake of this discussion, let's say Andrew Nembhard is a diehard, lifelong, John Fanta level, dyed-in-the-wool, eat, breathe, and sleep every pitch Cleveland baseball fan.
Okay.
And last night,
he's from a different area of Ontario.
He's not to the point where he wears a Cleveland jersey for every game because he is over 12, but he is a diehard fan, right?
Okay, wow.
So
we're going there. Okay.
So, hey, Eddie said it yesterday. Eddie, you opened that door up, right?
He didn't put an age limit on it. I didn't realize we were putting an age line.
You didn't want to ask the question.
Eddie wore a Jonathan Taylor jersey no more than a month ago. What are we setting age limits for on jerseys here?
This goes back to yesterday when Eddie called out Jimmy for wearing his jerseys and said, Eddie, what was it you said?
When is your wife going to tell you to grow up or something along those lines?
At any rate, so let's just say that he is the diehard Cleveland sports fan, okay?
Yeah.
Andrew Nembhard last night when the Guardians, his beloved Indians of his childhood, now the Guardians, when they were down 5-3 and hit a 2-run homer with 2 outs in the ninth to force extra innings.
Yep.
And then hit a home run to win the game in walk-off fashion in extra innings and make it 2-1 instead of going down 3-0 in the ALCS.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like Andrew Nembhard, if that was his team, would have gone like this. Oh, cool. He is the least excitable, even keeled all the time athlete.
You think he's just the guy on the bench that's just a fist bump after that?
Correct. He just seems unflappable, right?
Yeah.
Which is what I love about him within that rotation. But my point being, back to the original point,
Mm-hmm.
I think that when you look at different sets that Rick Carlisle can use, that Nembhard is the one piece that just feels like you have to always find time for him on the floor because of not only his offensive versatility, but defensively as well, his ability to get on ball, and there are not a lot of guys that can do that. But they still are they again got off to a slow start. I don't know what you attribute that to. Maybe it is just preseason. They didn't seem they were very loose, so maybe we don't read too much into that and we're nitpicking. But nonetheless, last night, the other question that I have, I'm very curious, and we are just now entering the area where I think it's even fair to discuss this, because I was looking at the roster last night, and I'm looking at the sheet as the game is taking place, and it lists date of birth for players, okay? 2 players in that game last night that were born in the 80s. And I'm thinking, first off, you've got to be pretty old in today's NBA to have been born in the 80s. James Johnson, one of them for the Pacers, obviously. And then I'm looking at it, and that's the reminder to me, Jarris Walker is only 20 years old. And maybe it's unfair because of where he was selected. And it's only year number 2, and he didn't get a lot of rotation in year number 1. And I think they had differing areas where they wanted to see where he might fit in. And this year, perhaps they're going to work him into different areas than what we initially anticipated would be where he would play. So maybe he is more of a 3 than a 4. He has the body type of a power forward, but he has the height of a small forward, although small forwards now can go up to 7. But, who knows, right? But I feel like this is a huge year for him, albeit, and then I have to remind myself, he's 20 years old. 20. I come from the era where NBA players, we didn't know specifically who and what they were until they were 25 or 26. People forget Reggie Miller was 25 or 26 before he even played in a playoff game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we forget that in today's world, because if you're 21, you should be already the guy, right? It's just a different era. So you have the luxury of time with Jarris Walker. But for me, thanks for jinxing me, Eddie. For me, I haven't seen all of the glimpses that one would be looking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, the glimpses, though, and you put the caveat in there, which is important, the glimpses have been limited in the opportunities to be shown. But in the opportunities that have been there hasn't been anything that's popped. Now, that said, there was a logjam last year that's been well documented. He was not good enough or built enough at this stage of his NBA career as a rookie to be able to overtake the likes of Jalen Smith, Isaiah Jackson, and others that he was competing for time with. And one of the prevailing thoughts is he's going to see more time at small forward this year, which would negate that issue to begin with. But this isn't really a question for the Pacers as much as it is something I'm really fascinated by. This is a year for them where questions will start to arise regardless of how well they play. And those questions focus on how they're building around Tyrese Halliburton. Because there are questions they're going to have to answer by season's end. They're going to have a decision to make in courting Miles Turner and trying to retain his services. They're going to, you would think, based on the way most players operate and players wanting to get theirs and get paid, even though they still have another season of team control with a club option for Benedict Mathurin before he hits restricted free agency, you're going to have clearer evaluation of what he's worth and what type of battle you're looking at in 2 years when he's a restricted free agent. And on top of that, you're then having to navigate answers to questions of Jarris Walker. Because, Jake, if you're right, if it gets to a point this season where you look at what Jarris Walker is for this team and you realize, I don't think he fits here, or I think we've gotten all we can out of him, he still has a very friendly rookie contract that would be appealing to teams if they were to ask.
Right.
I'm not trying to ship off Pacers right now, to be clear. John gives me a hard time about that. It's not what I'm trying to do. I'm really saying there are questions I'm fascinated by that very well could appear this year because of the way their roster is currently constructed.
I mean, you just got to give him time. Like Jake said, he's 20. I think he just turned 21 years old, and he switched positions, so he's just got to get used to being out there. And
yeah, I'm still on board for that, by the way.
The player that I could compare him to right now is Aaron Nesmith when he was in Boston. Like, look at the log
that's
jam
fair. That's a very
for
fair.
Nesmith.
That's
Like,
a very fair point.
a very win-now team, and he just didn't have the time to develop with minutes on the floor. And that may be the situation where Jarris Walker is
could
headed
happen here.
towards.
He turned 21 the day after my birthday. You're right. Sorry.
That's you bring up that situation, and it's a good one, Eddie, because it represents both sides of the coin for what Walker could be as a Pacer. It very well might be that there's too tight positioning, there's too much of a logjam here, and the same thing happens with Nesmith that happens to Jarris Walker, or he might well blossom with a more positional friendly change for his overall circumstance with the Pacers, and he might very well get the opportunity to flourish and blossom into the player they drafted him to be.
By the way, big night tonight, as I mentioned, up in West Lafayette. We are ready to shock the world, baby.
Game of the century, some are calling
Ready
it.
to shock the world. And, the good news is when I'm rolling in, I'm going to roll in style in West Lafayette, right? Because
Shannon on your right arm and the duck on your left.
If I get to see the duck, it's all, I want to see Purdue shock the world, and I'm ready to tear down goalposts, but it is all about the duck to some extent.
Yeah.
I was thrilled when I went to Cal, and I got to meet the Golden Bear, which looks like a 1940s garage sale mascot outfit. I mean, it was like, what in the hell is going on here? But I did get a photo with him. He was wearing a little sweater. He was fun. Nothing like the duck, though. If I get to meet the duck, it'd be awesome.
I'm going to be very jealous.
You think she's going to have the same type of reaction meeting the duck like she did meeting Bucky?
She was excited meeting. Although I have to admit, when we were at Bucky's and I told Shannon, I'm like, just get in there and get a picture with Bucky. She and there were like all these little kids. It was her and a bunch of little kids. And she's like, I feel kind of bad. We're in line in front of a bunch of 9-year-olds. So I'm like, that's okay. We've waited our turn. Get your picture with Bucky.
They were all wearing jerseys, by the way.
I think I'll be more excited to meet the duck. I'll be honest with you. But we're going to roll in style because my car's going to be running great because I just went to Jiffy Lube like 2 weeks ago on Pendleton Pike. Glenn took care of me. It's going to look great because I've got, a monthly car wash program. And if you have a monthly car wash program, by the way, now through the end of the year, you go to Jiffy Lube, just simply point to that. Hey, look, I care about the outside of my car. Obviously, you guys know I care about the interior of the car because I'm here under the hood getting things taken care of at Jiffy Lube. But they're going to say, you know what? You care about your car that much? Boom. We want to give you $20 off a signature service oil change, and we're going to rotate your tires for free, all because you have that sticker in the window telling us you're part of a car wash program. If you are part of one, right now, Jiffy Lube till the end of the year, both of those things are going to happen for you. $20 off the signature service oil change and a free tire rotation at any of your local Jiffy Lubes. Big savings from your trusted one-stop shop for all vehicle maintenance where you never need an appointment, talking about Jiffy Lube. All right, West 56, Colts getting set. Final practice before taking on the Dolphins. Who's in, who's out? We'll let you know next. Yeah. Previewing the photo I'm getting tonight. Eddie Garrison was kind of bopping his head along there for some Rick D's.
Whack, whack. Whack, whack.
Unfortunately, with where your voice is, people aren't going to know if it's the duck quacking or you.
That's correct. That's correct.
On where things are.
You know about the duck that goes into the convenience store and buys chapstick?
Give it to me.
Clerk says, is that going to be cash or credit? He says, just put it on my bill.
Well
I have another great joke about a duck walking into a convenience store. That's a clean joke. One of the 2 clean jokes that I know, but it takes like 10 minutes to tell, so I won't get to it.
One of the 2 clean jokes about ducks you know, or one of the 2 clean jokes overall
Total
that you
that I
know?
know.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get the updates here on what's happening at West 56th Street in terms of the Colts. They have a long injury report. Now, we have discussed this before when it comes to bye weeks as to whether or not it's advantageous to have your bye at the, towards the end of the run, the string of bye weeks, and get healthy for the final push, or whether it's better, like, say, right now when, they are pretty banged up and they've got a serious gauntlet going on here in terms of their schedule upcoming. But this is life in the NFL, right? It's a long list of players, but you know the drill. Let's recap for everybody who is new to the program.
Where have you been?
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you for joining us now.
The way that we do this is if a player is practicing, when I say the name, Eddie will give this sound effect. If the player is not practicing today, we will give this sound effect. And if a player has yet to be seen, we will get this. Which...
How long before the cricket gets added to the official soundboard of the show? I know I'm taking us behind the curtain there, but I'm curious. What does the crickets have to do?
For those unfamiliar with what
close.
that means,
We're getting close.
Eddie
There's a
is
sound
using the
effects
left
board.
hand for the crickets. He has an automatic button for the other
Correct.
two. Okay.
Crickets need to be graduated to the automatic slide.
I would
Come on
tend to
now.
agree with
I
that.
didn't know if it was one of those things where it was just a phase
That's
or
fair.
permanent.
That's fair.
Typically, we have been using the cricket sounder. It came about because DeForest Buckner is one because he's on the IR that we have not seen at practice lately.
Yeah.
So let's see if that is still the case. Today for practice, DeForest Buckner, if you will. Ooh, so we have seen him, right?
Correct. He was. He made an appearance at practice, did not participate. He was watching the defensive lineman.
Okay.
He emerged from DeForest.
A couple of real question marks here going into this game. With a toe injury, wide receiver Josh Downs, is he practicing? Josh Downs. Okay, that's good news, right?
All right.
How about another one that becomes significant and has been significant? Michael Pittman Jr., also wide receiver.
Man.
Okay, that's a big question mark there.
Are we accepting Michael Pittman Jr. from an observational standpoint, since everybody's saying it's pain tolerance and it's a day-to-day, week-to-week thing? Are we putting him in the same boat that you put Jonathan Taylor, Jake, which is it doesn't matter how much he practices as long as he's feeling pain tolerable on a game day, it's fine?
Week, right?
Yeah.
I would think that if he's not going, it is entirely possible that is strictly a preventative measure, and that that they still are designing for him to play. All right, let's get to Jonathan Taylor, running back Jonathan Taylor. The ankle, okay, not going now. Remember, he keeps saying he's feeling better. That leads to Trey Sermon, his backup, who kind of mysteriously ended up with a knee injury at the beginning of the week. Is he practicing? Oh, good. Okay, that's good news. Trey Sermon's out there. What about E.J. Speed, also with a knee?
Let's go. Sigh of relief.
We're on a hot streak here. We're rolling hot streak with players that are practicing. Let's go with Alec Pierce with a shoulder injury. Outstanding, right? Can we continue it with Dio, who has the hamstring? Okay. No Dio in terms of practice. What about Grover Stewart? Now, what's going on with Grover?
Undisclosed. It could be a rest day for him, honestly.
Is it a birthday party for Elmo?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Did he decide to take that off? All right, lastly, let's go with Ryan Kelly. Ryan Kelly, the center. Okay. No real answers at the two that I think have been the biggest question marks in Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman Jr., but Anthony Richardson, Jimmy, I still think, yes, I think he's a go at this point, right?
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I guess I need to hold my breath until the final practice report comes out because he was a limited participant last Friday, but as long as he gets the little FP full participant marker, then yeah, I think he's a go on Sunday.
So I was just told when we go up to West Lafayette that Harry's is not going to be in the cards. There's no way. Like, I have to be there now. So there's no way that we're going to get into Harry's, so that's off the board.
What about Izzy's?
Excellent point. Excellent point. What
Oh,
about
thank you.
Triple X? How
Thank
about
you.
Triple X? Now, is Shannon going to get mad if I go, we're going to a place called Triple X?
You got to forgive me. It's been a couple years since I've been to Triple X. I've always thought of that as delicious food. Like it's a must go to scene if you are going on campus or going near Purdue.
Yeah, it's not a,
but
it's not
it's
a
not
pregame
like
place.
Yeah,
it's not a bar.
Right, correct.
It's not a bar.
Correct.
But Harry's is that's the go-to bar.
As someone who's never been up to West Lafayette, Triple X does not sound like a restaurant.
Well, of course, that's the whole deal, right? And it's like literally, it's where you take like a kid. Actually, it's like a root beer burger place. It's great. It's really good.
Very tasty.
Yeah, it's good. That's probably, I'm guessing that's the reason for the name, unless it's that the cheeseburgers are triple extra large. I don't know. Now, so if we can't go to Harry's, and then do we just wander through and do tailgating?
I mean, that sounds like as good a plan as any.
You think we can just walk through and eat dinner via tailgates?
I think that's very possible.
Do you think anybody would have like a burger or a hot dog or? But here's the thing, though. My concern is we're going to be walking through the tailgate, right?
Mhm.
And I'm going to say, this is how we're going to eat. And Shannon would be down for that, but then we're going to get up there and she's going to say, do you have a wrap by chance?
Okay, I was about to say Shannon should do the talking, but if that's how she's leading off at the tailgate, you might want to still go ahead and do it.
So, that's the thing. Like, I don't know. Is it bad form if you're taking a date to a football game and you say, yeah, we're going to be eating by just like bogarting people's tailgates? Crashing people's tailgates?
It depends. If we were to give Shannon a call, would she say that's on brand for One Jake Query? Because if it is, then no, it's not weird.
That's a good question. She's never made a cameo on the program. We could find out. We could find out.
Not trying to put her in difficult spots.
She's going to pick up the phone. She's like, Jake does radio?
That's exactly right. Oh, wait a minute. Is this the same station as JV? That'll probably be how that works out, right?
No, look, I am the wrong. I'm sure some of our listenership would be able to help you if you want to have them call you. But I'm, as an IU alum, I know of Harry's, I know of the Neon Cactus, I know of Triple X. That is and the Hot Box Pizza. That's the extent of my West Lafayette knowledge. I'm the wrong person to ask of where to go to pregame for Purdue. No idea.
I do like Hot Box Pizza.
But yeah, I would imagine that Harry's
can't
is
go
totally
wrong with Hot
packed.
Box Pizza, right?
Their sticks are amazing.
Yeah, very good as well.
I just texted Shannon. Can you call in the show? She writes back, why?
That makes me know that she knows you have a show, though. She said why, and not what show.
That would have been. You're right, Eddie.
She probably responded, "Is that the one Eddie's on?"
She did get a little, let's see, excited to meet me at the State Fair back in the day.
Of course. Everybody's excited to meet you, Eddie. I mean, she's like, holy cow, I can't believe that somebody actually has a cranium that large, right?
No, she goes, I've heard a lot about you.
Yeah, that's right. She's part of my evening therapy. You know what I mean? I should have. We should get her on to find out whether or not she would be up for eating via the tailgate.
I mean, you could speak to that though while we wait. Would you say she is the type of gal that's down to just caravan around a tailgate lot?
I'm going to say for the sake of radio that she will say she's cool with that. But deep down, she's going to be like, come on, can we just do dinner somewhere?
Yeah.
That's my guess. Now, she's also she would be up for, I would think, like getting a beer somewhere. But if I say to her, the only beer that we're going to have is like via people tailgating, we're going to see if she's down for it.
Yeah, I mean, you're almost better off with the tailgate because if you go to an actual bar or spot, your keg is going to blow anyway. So, I mean, really doesn't matter. You might as well just take a chance with the caravan.
Okay, so Shannon's joining us on the program now on the Express Pro Tire and Auto Guest line. Shannon, we're having this discussion on the air. First off, are you excited for the big Purdue game tonight?
Yeah, I'm excited.
Okay. Now, do you know they're taking on Oregon? Do you know Oregon's mascot? Because my goal is that we're going to get our picture taken with the mascot. Do you know the mascot?
I do not.
That's the Ducks. So we're going to get our picture taken with a big duck, which will go next to the picture of you with Bucky. Eddie pointed out you were excited to meet Bucky, right, when we went to Nashville?
Bucky was cool. Bucky was cool. I would be excited about the Oregon Duck, too.
Okay. Now, here's the question, though, because and so we're doing this live on the air. Several people have invited me to their tailgate, but then we also were strategizing going up and having dinner and like going to one of the bars on the main strip of campus before we go to the game itself. But now they're telling me that if you're not already at the bar, there's no chance. So we were wondering if you would be okay with just eating dinner by grazing off of free food from people's tailgates and possibly getting like potentially warm canned beer at the tailgates before we go to the game.
The warm canned beer, probably a no-go.
Shannon, are you factoring in the idea, though, that if you guys go somewhere, the keg's going to blow on Jake anyway? So, I mean, honestly,
Well, yeah.
warm beer's probably just as safe.
Yeah, exactly. So I think maybe we should just eat before we even get there. And then take a chance with like beer in a bar and not hot beer.
But what does happen 1/3 of the time that I order a beer in a bar?
Well, the keg always blows, but then there's always an option. There's other options.
I know, but literally it's every single, no matter what we order, right? All right,
Well, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to head up there, and then we're going to eat dinner, and then you're going to find a tailgate where people look friendly, and then we are going to stop at least one tailgate, right? And then look for the duck?
That's fine. I'll do the one's tailgate, look for the duck, photo op, go to the game for like an hour.
Photo op. Go to the game for like no, wait a minute. Shannon, here's the thing, though. Purdue is taking on Oregon, who's number 2 in the country. Purdue is really struggling. If Purdue is hanging around and they're close in this game, we are staying because we are rushing the field, right?
Well, you could rush the field. I will not rush the field. And I hope they do win. I do hope that they win.
No,
Somebody's got to have the car
listen,
ready for a quick escape. Let's be real here.
You're going to be right there with me when we tear down the. I want a picture of you swinging from the goalpost before we throw it into the Wabash River.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Okay, well,
I'm going to beat the traffic.
Okay. All right, well,
Okay,
we're staying for the whole game if it's an upset, Shannon. I'm warning you of that right now.
okay.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
see you in a little bit after the show. By the way, I don't know if you know this or not, but our show's over at 3, and so then I'll be up there after that.
Yeah. No. Okay, that's fine. I know when your show's over. Of course.
Yeah, I know you do because that's when J&B comes on, right?
That's right. My
All right.
fave.
We'll get back into it, by the way. Former Colt Friday coming up. Clarence Verdin, the Verdant's going to join us just under 20 minutes from now. Now, this is good news. I thought the game started at 7. I guess it starts later than that, right?
Is that good news for Shannon?
Yeah, we bought ourselves more time to figure out what we're doing. This is, as you can tell, this is a very well-oiled machine in terms of our preparation and planning for this, right?
Yes.
Now, I don't know if I should take this like offensively or not, but several people have said she sounds far more normal than I would expect for somebody who hangs out with you. Okay.
She's a very nice woman.
Well, did people think that I that she wouldn't be normal?
I think you're not normal, so
I think perhaps they assumed that she would also be staying awake at 3 a.m. thinking about weather patterns or whatever the random nugget is in the Jake Query brain. That
Brothers is now also on the docket for
there is a Brothers there. That would work. Yeah, I forgot about that
because that's a lot bigger, right?
Yeah, and Brothers is nice. I mean,
and that's where we watched
a college bar.
That's where we watched the Purdue North Carolina State Final Four game in Broderpool, which I know is like nice. That's the South Campus of Brothers, if you will. Okay, so Colts and Dolphins coming up, Lucas Oil Stadium. Clarence Verdin going to join us about 10 minutes from now. I look forward to that. Jimmy, when you talk about this Dolphins matchup, we haven't really gotten into what Miami brings to the table and what challenges are there for the Colts. Bottom line is it's not for a defensive backfield on the Indianapolis side that is obviously working itself through some depletion by injury. It doesn't feel like, even though there are really good wideouts for Miami, that they're going to be overly tested because of the fact that Miami's not going to go to the air much, right?
Yeah, Miami's air yards have been down since Tua was hurt a couple of weeks ago. They have continued to try to find whether it was Skylar Thompson, who flamed out miserably, and Tyler Huntley now in his second start with the Dolphins.
Is there a way to flame out non-miserably? I'd use the same phrase, flamed out miserably. But, would there be a flamed out joyously?
Maybe if, you were trying to, those Red Bull people that, go off of the ramps into water? You fail.
Correct.
Spectacularly or flame out spectacularly in that case because you just nosedived into water, maybe?
Okay, that's fair.
But it's been a 1st to 15 type of game for them the last couple of weeks. And, I mean, I know they were able to find a win a couple weeks ago in large part due to their defense versus what they were really able to do from an explosive offensive nature. This is not the same Dolphins team that made that great run where it looked like they were going to win the AFC East last year. Buffalo obviously beats them in the final game, but they still have the weapons. They still have the brand names, but they have no real threat at quarterback. What they're banking on is Tyler Huntley with now 3 weeks under his belt, if you count the bye week, being more familiar with Mike McDaniel's system, being more confident in himself as a quarterback, and being able to access their guys in space, which they've failed to do throughout the last couple of weeks. The other side of the coin is they're banged up defensively. Yes, they still have Jalen Ramsey, but this isn't a otherworldly defense the same way I'd be highlighting the Steelers a couple of weeks ago. This is a game the Colts should win. On paper, which these games never played, the Colts are better equipped, and they are more stable at a lot of key positions than the Dolphins are. That said, if Huntley does figure it out and they're throwing through the air more, now you're worried suddenly about Jalen Waddle, about Odell Beckham Jr., about Tyreek Hill, with a Colts secondary that you can't trust anymore. I mean, or with a Colts trench warfare, I should say, you can't trust anymore because of all the injuries that have stacked up there.
You have to get this one, though, right?
Yes.
Especially when you consider last night. Just for example, here's an example of where the Colts need to stay in traffic, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about the fact that, and I know it's ridiculous to say after 6 games, if the playoffs begin now, well, they don't. But there are teams that have gotten off to starts the antithesis of what you anticipated. Cincinnati would be obviously the big one. Now, the other side of that, Jacksonville. I don't think anybody thought Jacksonville would be this bad, okay? But Denver, for example, last night, I'm not saying Denver's a great team, but Denver's right there in that same thick, right? They know they're not going to win their division, but if they can just hold course and beat the teams they're supposed to, they're going to stay in that conversation. That's one team, if you're Indianapolis, you keep an eye on what Denver's doing because they're right there in that same lane with them.
Miami is literally that team.
Right. And they go in. Last night, Denver goes into a game where they have to win because they're going against an injury-riddled team.
Yes.
And they go in and they do what they have to do and they win a game. That's what you have to do, and that's exactly the situation. What Denver did last night is the exact circumstance that the Colts are facing coming up on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Jake, we just have to focus on ourselves, do our job day in, day out. Go in there and execute, and
Those guys
come
are
out
on
with the
scholarship
W.
too. Those guys get paychecks too. We just got to go out there.
They signed up for 60.
We just got to
be
keep
honest.
grinding.
Yep.
And then say the coach speak before and after the game, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the way that they do it. One guy that was nicknamed by Jim Irsay many, many moons ago when it comes to coach speak, Jim Irsay called him CNN because he said he's always talking. And he was always entertaining. I think most people think of him as the Verdance, talking about the dancing of Clarence Verdin. Interesting, because when I called Clarence Verdin, the former Colt, yesterday to see if he could come on for Former Colt Friday on today's program.
Can't call it that.
That's right. When I called him, he was right in the middle of something that, you think to yourself, well, these guys played in the NFL, and now they're all living in Malibu, or they're living in, the highlight. I'm not saying he wasn't, but I found it heartwarming what he was doing. When I called him yesterday, he said, I'm actually helping my mom because he's down in Louisiana, and his mom had some hurricane damage, and he was helping her move some stuff and getting her resettled and everything else. Just a super good dude, nice guy. And I asked if he wanted to come on. He said, let's talk about Indy. Let's talk about the glory days. And I said, let's do it. And so that's exactly what we're going to do, and we're going to do it next. A pair of the 12 career touchdowns for Clarence Verdin, both of them almost certainly leading to some sort of a Michael Jackson dance move in the end zone for Verdance. And the man that Jim Irsay said was like CNN, he was always talking, Clarence Verdin, who joins us now on this former Colt Friday on the Express Pro Tire and Auto guest line from down in the Bayou. I believe his home state of Louisiana is where we find him. Clarence, it is a pleasure. How are you?
Yeah. Doing okay, man. Doing fine. Yeah, just day by day, man. I know you're getting a little old now, you know? Yeah.
Now, you're not old. You're only 61 years old, right? You could probably still play, can't you?
Yeah. No, I wish I could. I be calling Earth, say, y'all, you see me on that sideline.
Hey, let's get to, listen, right now I'm actually wearing a Houston Gamblers T-shirt. You can't see it. We're on radio.
Get out of here, man. Get out of here.
I am.
Yeah?
I am. Houston Gamblers, baby. Jim Kelly, that's where you made your start, right? So I want to go, before we get to your time as an Indianapolis Colt, I'm fascinated by a guy that started his career in the USFL because, Clarence, I think a lot of younger guys probably don't realize that, that was a legit league that was on its way to kind of competing against the NFL, but it had kind of also this wild, wild west day. Take me through playing in the USFL.
Oh, man, it was great. That's probably one of the best time in football I ever had. Like you say, they assembled a team with, the smaller receiver back, before I got in the NFL, you had a lot of tall receivers, 6'2", 6'3" receivers, and that was the stereotype, in order to play in the NFL, you had to be that size, And Miles Davis, I guess he was in Canada and had he had invented what they call now spread offense, West Coast offense, which was run and shoot. And, man, I was drafted I think I was almost Mr. Irrelevant in the USFL draft. And it was a kind of weird draft. So anyway, from there, man, they saw potential. One of the coaches that was on the staff knew me in college. What I did him, he coached at Rice and told Miles Davis, man, you got to keep this kid. And, man, it was then Jim Kelly also, man, he went to Jerry Argibus, the owner. I'm like, man, if any one of these guys I want to have on this team, you got to keep this guy Verdin. And, man, it was history. Like, say, Jim, he probably the best quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks I ever played with, man. I mean, he was the real deal. And, great. Like I say, you had Herschel Walker. I mean, the majority of guys out the USFL came in the NFL and kind of put the NFL on the map again.
Oh, Reggie White. There were a lot of them, right?
Reggie White, Jim Kelly. I mean, you name Anthony Carter. I mean, Ricky Sam. I mean, you just go on, man. It's Steve Young. It just goes on and on the list. Yeah.
So for you, your gateway into the NFL became with Washington. You were on a roster that won a Super Bowl with Doug Williams and that prolific Super Bowl. And then what led you to ending up with Indianapolis?
Man, I asked for a trade, I was like, I didn't think they were going to trade me there. Yeah, I thought they were going to trade me to the Raiders, New Orleans. And I get a phone call one day coming from working out and say, man, this is Ryan Meyer from Indianapolis Colts, man. We welcome you on board. We want you here tomorrow morning. And I thought it was a prank phone call, like, man, who? And I thought it was Baltimore Colts, really. I mean, really, I was like, man. I didn't realize it was. I mean, I ain't never been to Indiana. I never heard. I really didn't. I was like, man, who is this? So I'm like, man, no, this is one of my one of my teammates. I said, man, come on, man, stop clowning. And they said, no. He said, man, I need you here, son. You act like you don't want to play. So I said, well, let me call Bobby Bethel and see what's going on. Ain't nobody called me and told me I was traded. And, man, I called Bobby Bethel and like, dude, what's going on? I just got a phone call from this guy, Ryan Meyer, saying they traded for me last night. He said, yeah, you said you wanted to be traded, so we traded you there. So I'm like, damn. Then he had told me Eric Dickerson had just came there, months before. I'm like, dude, I don't want to go where I know they're going to run the ball, And so when I got there, man, I seen all the attention was on Eric, like it was about Eric Dickerson. And, I was like, man, something got to change, man. But I wasn't a punt returner. I was a kickoff returner. So he tells me, man, you come in here to return punts. And, man, they had Ryan Stark kicking me the ball. And I think out of probably about 20 kicks that he punted to me, I caught probably 2. So it was like, and he even said he shook his head like, dude, I think we messed up. And but they invested in what you call a jug machine, man. I had to catch 100 balls every day before practice and after practice. And Ryan Stark, by him being a left-footed punter, his ball it traveled distant. So that was a good thing. Catching his punts made it easy for Roby and these guys here within our division. And man, from there, man, it was like I say, man, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I mean, it reignited my career. Went to the Pro Bowl a few times, and just it was awesome, man. My family, man, my wife, she loved Indianapolis. She wanted to live there. I mean, my kids went, one of the best schools, Park Tudor. I mean, so it was great, man. I ain't lie, everything worked out in my favor, man, which I thought was kind of blim because I went to Ron Meyer one day. I was like, Coach, I said, man, are we gonna ever run the ball around here? I said, man, all we do is block all day. And he did what he told me. He said, hey, man, who we have in the backfield? I said, Eric Dickerson. He said, well, we're going to run the ball till he get tired. So you just do what we tell you to do. I'm like, damn.
Now,
but that kind of changed. Yeah.
Clarence, here's the thing. You were part of a group that realistically, so when you come to Indianapolis and Ron Meyer's here and they had made the Dickerson trade the year before the Monday night game, that was, to your point, I think people in Indianapolis, and I'm saying this jokingly, didn't even realize the Colts were here yet, right, for the first couple of years. I mean, you had everybody was a Bears fan or Bengals fan or Steelers fan, a Dolphins fan in Indianapolis. You were part of that group that really married it to the city itself. Did you feel that when you were a part of it?
Oh, yeah. I said it one night, man. Me and Fred, we went out to this I forgot the name of this bar by Keystone across, man, the Safari Bar.
Safari Bar, oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we were sitting there. I said, man, let me tell you something, bro. I said, they don't know what's about to hit them. I said, I'm gonna create this thing called the Verdin. I said, because Indianapolis seemed like at the game you score a touchdown, it was like okay, they barely clap. Everybody come to this game with their suits on, and I mean it was a basketball town. You can tell it was a basketball. IU was the thing. All you heard was IU, Indy 500. When I first came, they even let me go to there, and I got to the stadium, about to go in. I was like, man, I had their daughter she probably was 1 year old at the time, and the noise was so loud. And my wife like, there's no way we going in there. And we turned back around. I think we were on 38th Street or something. That's where the track was. And we like, nah, man, I can't go. It's too loud. How do these people even sit there and hear all this noise? But it was Indy 500, and about time the year was over with, man. I mean. And I had him up in the stand boogalooing, and hollering and screaming, and we bird dancing, and somebody had to come up with an attitude, and I think I did that. And then we brought in Andre Rison, and he had his little thing, So it was great, man. But like I said, I did see the change. Yeah.
Clarence,
so,
you mentioned, initially when you find out you're getting traded in Indianapolis, and I always hear stories like this. I remember my dad telling me about Indianapolis being a place that like people either didn't know about or was looked over as flyover country. But you wind up, that's the longest stint in your career is 5 years here. Yeah. What was it about the city and the people as you, were a professional athlete that made you want to be here?
Man, like I said, my family, they embraced my family, man. And I mean, my thing was, it was a family-oriented city, man. It was about family. And my wife, like, she loved it that, I mean, it wasn't no distraction. You're an NFL player making money, man. You can have some temptations come towards your way. And they love it. My kids loved it. Like I said, they was at Park Tudor, man. I mean, one of the probably best schools in the country. I always brag on the school. My kids got, education top of the line, and it was great. So when we left, man, she cried, man. I mean, I want to go back. I'm like, nah, it's too cold, man. Give me New Orleans, man. How about this Mardi Gras, man? I want, and then my folks are from, here, so I didn't want to be too far from my mom and my dad, and she ready. Right now, if I tell my wife, let's go back to Indy, she ready to go right now. She'll sell everything. She loves it, man. She loves it, man.
Do you still watch the Colts?
Like I said, we're in New Orleans, so we catch a lot of, the Saints games and, a lot of the NFC West teams, man. So in different regions, you catch certain games, but every now and then it'll come on. I'm kind of, I think they still got time, man, but, it's quarterback. If they can keep if they can keep him healthy, man, But Flacco, he coming in, he doing, he bring that experience, man. But I'm keeping an eye on him, man. Everybody in the neighborhood, like you say, bro. I got Peyton Manning. I pretty much when he was in high school, man, he used to come work out with me, and it was interesting to see him and Marshall Faulk after I left. They came. And it was something that the story with Pate, his dad called me, Archie called me one day because they did a segment on TV, all the NFL guys in New Orleans work out at Tulane University. So Archie called, Pate's dad called me, and I had never heard of Pate. I didn't watch high school football that much. And he called me and said, hey, man, Clarence, this is Archie. And I'm like, yeah. The person like, how you got my number? And I said, well, the NFL alumni got a directory, gave it to him. And he said, look, my son want to come out. I want my son to come out. I see y'all guys working out. I would like for him to come and throw the ball if y'all let him throw the ball. So how can you tell Archie no? I'm like, Mr. Manning, yeah, bring him out. So I called my neighbor, which was Pat Swilling at the time. I said, hey, man, I did something messed up. He said, what? I said, man, I told Archie he can send his son out here and throw the ball. He said, well, why you do that, dude? The little dude in high school, he's going to bring his friends out there. They're going to autograph. So I'm like, well, here's what I said. I said, bro, he ain't going to last. I said, I give him 2 or 3 days. That little kid ain't going to last because we do a lot of running and stuff. Man, he came out there, and that third day, I called him because he was in school. And I called him. I said, hey, man, if you don't have any class, can you come out and throw the ball? But I guess he had enough credit, so he didn't go to school in the morning. He just had a few hours. Like, kids get advanced, man. So he was a senior year. He really didn't have to go to school because he really had graduated already. And so he'll come out every day, man, and I told him one day, I said, he was about to go back to camp. He was going, I think Tennessee had signed him. And I told him, I said, hey, man, I said, dude, you're going to be the richest football player to ever play this game one day. And he was so modest. He said, thank you, sir. I said, I'm serious, dude.
So you could see it. You could see in a young Peyton Manning that Peyton Manning was there.
Oh, man. It was unreal, man. It was unreal. We still talk about it. I mean, it's like, dude, this little guy was so polished, and a lot of guys, people in New Orleans around, could they'll say, oh, he only did it because his dad, I said, no. I don't know Eli that well because he was too young. I say, but Pate, I seen him put in the work, partner. I said, I saw him put in the work in high school. He's come out there with us, and I used to get ready for the NFL fastest man. So I would tell him to get like 15 yards in front of me. A bunch of the guys, I just catch him, try to catch up with him, get some work in. And, man, he run the 400 with us. Guy named called Tom Shaw. He was probably one of the top trainers around the country, man. But, yeah, he came in, bro, and I seen it firsthand.
Who did you root for when the Colts and Saints played in the Super Bowl?
Oh, man, I was Colts, man. And look, I was the only one in New Orleans. Look, and after that, when Saints beat them, man, they egged my house, and man, it was all fun. Yeah, it was crazy, man. Yeah, bro, it was crazy, man. They egged my house, and man had the Saints signs in front of my house, and Pate, man, like you say, man, he was the real deal, bro. So
Clarence, for you. You mentioned Clarence Verdin is our guest on Former Colt Friday here on the Express Pro Tire and Auto Gas Line, of course, beloved member of the Colts from 88 to 93. And during that time, you did have to go through a number of different quarterbacks. You had obviously Chris Chandler, you had Jeff George, then you had Jack Trudeau. I think maybe even Walsh and Erickson might have been mixed in there as well.
Ferguson. We had Ferguson, Kane. We had
did you have Mikowski?
Burt Jones, I think. Burt Jones, I think he played, man. He was trembling, man. I don't know what God had this dude. And then we had some other black little dude, man. He did the option.
Ricky Turner.
I wanted to run the Yeah. Ricky Turner. He came for a few days. Yeah, so, I mean, I was the only one probably didn't get in there as a quarterback.
So was that hard? The reason I ask, for a receiver right now for the Colts, if you're going from, and we do know now that Shane Steichen has said Anthony Richardson will go on Sunday, for example. So you go from Flacco back to Anthony Richardson. As a receiver, Clarence Verdin, was it difficult? And I know that you were a return specialist, but you were a receiver as well for the Colts. Was it difficult to go from one quarterback to the next, from one Sunday to the next?
I guess my routes was different than Billy Brooks. I just wanted to go deep, man. If you can throw it deep, I think every quarterback at least throw it deep. So I didn't have, they didn't throw too many in routes and slants to me. It was more man, spread the zone. And I think, Jack, Jeff, Chris. I mean, Chris probably threw one of the best deep balls I ever played with, other than Doug Williams, man. Jack is slinging out there, but I had to kind of slow down for him. Jeff George had a great arm. I think his career, for whatever reason, man, I always thought he was a Hall of Famer player. I mean, when I first met him, and but his, just whatever didn't work out for him. I guess the system that he has some hell of a talent, man. I mean, he can sling that thing.
How difficult was the system then, Clarence? Because you had Ron Meyer, and then you transitioned. You had coaching changes. You had a lot of offensive coordinator changes. You bring in Ricky Turner to run the wishbone for 4 weeks. I mean, it was from the outside. It seemed like we were watching a circus, one that we loved, but a circus nonetheless. What was it like being on the inside?
It was man. It was like I said, I think Ron Ron wanted to. He wanted to change the game, which was a great thing, and I think if we'd have stayed with Ron, he would change. Seriously, he would change that program around. He was putting the pieces together. For whatever reason, then we brought in Ted Marchibroda, and he tried to make us look like Buffalo Bills. He and I knocked heads. I knew when he came, I was out of there. He told me one time. He had said it. I listened to an interview, and he's like, man, I need guys like Andre Reed at Buffalo, because that's the system he brought in, and I went to his office, and I like, man, basically you telling me you don't want me here. And so that kind of didn't rub him the right way. And like I said, next thing you know, I was out here. They brought Sean Dawkins in, guys that was big, big guys, and got rid of Billy Brooks, and it just I know he was Baltimore in the system that he had, not saying, he even passed away and I respect him, but his system wasn't he tried to bring back an old system, and the game had changed, man, and we had too much talent. But I mean, we had Billy Brooks, me, Jesse Hester, Reggie Lane. I mean, we had some guys that can play, and you could never really, express your ability because the system that he had was in. That's like me trying to play with the Lakers and being a center.
At 5'8", right? Yeah.
It's like, dude, I'm just being real, but we, and sometimes, you got to move on, man. And a lot of times we hold coaches in the game because their legacy and, he did this with Burt Jones, man. The game has changed now. I mean, it changes, man. So you need younger, energetic coaches that can relate to these younger players. And when we came in, the game was changing with the players.
Clarence,
it was more.
One thing that even with all that change.
Slow me down because I can talk a lot, so just slow me down.
No, we love it. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's why you're CNN, right? That's why Jimmy Irsay calls you that. So, which leads to this question. Jim Irsay is a guy that, and again, I don't pretend to be on the inside, but I think one thing that we can see is that Jim Irsay has a great love and passion for all players that have played for the Colts, and just a great relationship with them.
Man, let me tell you something, bro. When Hurricane Katrina hit, nobody don't really know this, bro. And I lost everything, bro. 20 foot of water in my home. Didn't know which way I was going to go. It was an experience I'd never want to wish on anybody. When I see that in South Carolina, man, I've been there. And when people, turned their back on me and I didn't hear nothing from nobody, man, Jim stepped up, bro, for my family, bro. I mean, it's words can't even describe. I'm just gonna say that he took care of my family, man. And I got back on my feet, and everything is good now. But I was in a dark place, man. Lost everything.
Did you have to reach out to him, or did Irsay? How did he find out?
No, man. I didn't. Billy Brooks. We stayed in contact. His wife and my wife, Holly, was good friends, so they knew what was going on. They saw it on TV, and people didn't notice. I had kind of when I got released from Indianapolis, I didn't never even want to come to Indianapolis. I felt bad, man. But I was young, but understand times. You need change, and I kind of. Put that block, man. I don't have anything to do. Don't mention Indianapolis to me. That's it. Blah blah blah. And he reached out to me. I guess Billy had to be Billy. And like, hey man, whatever happened between you and my dad, and what went down, but that was business. It wasn't nothing personal. But I'm worrying about your family. And so he said, man, whatever you need, man, I got you, man. And I was like, being stubborn, man. I don't need you. I'm all right. I said, I'm good, man, but I appreciate the offer. And shit, hey, he stepped up to the plate, bro. You know, I words can't even describe it, man. People don't know that.
Where would you be today without Jim Irsay?
Oh man, I wouldn't be living in this mansion. I wouldn't be financial. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't be. Bro, I was making 7 figures just catching punts back then. People didn't know that, man. That you know, Jim. Hey man, hey bro, that was unheard of. A punt returner making 7 figures. We had conflict on the team. You know, Ray Donaldson, all these guys knew about that. They got mad. You know, it was like, dude, you know. So it was like, you know, every time I went to dinner, they wanted me to pay for it. You know, it was like yeah. So it was but you know, but I mean, what it is. But
so Clarence, after Katrina, so Katrina hits, you obviously find yourself in a difficult situation.
Yeah.
You get back on your feet, and then when I called you yesterday or earlier this week. Was it deja vu for you? Because Dulac, Louisiana is your hometown. I believe your mother still lives there. And while you guys were spared a little bit, you kind of had to go through it again recently, didn't you, just in terms of storms?
Yeah. Well, my mom, they property. And it was, but it wasn't as bad as Ida. But it was, you know, but anytime your roof come off and all that's bad, man, when you got to move out your home. You know, so now we down there trying to, you know, deal with FEMA and all this crap again. Like every other year, we got to go through it, man. You know, but we, you know, resilient, man. We roll our sleeves up, but my mom, my family, my brothers, now, my mom, they from down there. They don't know no other place but there. You know, I'm like, man, get out of there. You know, like, nah, this is where we from, man. This is where we gonna live, where we gonna die at. But you know, I said, well, I'm gonna go to New Orleans where it's high ground. You know. But, you know, I still go down there, you know, and, you know, pitch in and, you know, show my support to my family, man. Ain't nothing like family. Yeah,
well,
I got
Clarence,
a real close family.
If it ever came to it and you got to come home again, there is no more Safari Bar in Indianapolis. I'm sorry to tell you that. Park Tudor's still here.
Man.
I know. It's disappointing.
I didn't visit. I visited a few years ago. I went over there, man. Me, Billy Brooks, Holly, his daughter was going there. And Walt, my daughter, they, you know, grown women. It was a story, man. This is a true story, man. You know, Jim's daughter and my daughter was in the same grade. So, man, you know, I used to always go to PTA meetings and stuff like that. So at that time, I forgot who was the president of the school, principal. He came to me and said, look, man, he said, you need to get with Jimmy and tell him to start coming to the parent, you know, whatever, PTA meeting. So I'm like, dude, I'm going to tell a man who's paying me for my daughter to come in. I say, bro, that ain't my job. Y'all think I'm stupid?
They got a huge complex there now named for the Irsay family, and his daughters are obviously involved. So I guess in the end it worked itself out, right? Now,
I'm like, dude,
do you still dance?
Huh?
Do you still dance?
Oh, man, I can't do it like I used to, man. These old bones, man. You know, all I do is just shake my head.
Let me tell you something. You had some sweet Michael Jackson moves. I don't know who came up with the choreography, but it worked, right?
Hey, brother, I try that right now. My knees will probably separate from each other.
Hey, that's all right, though. It looks good on film. That's what I know, Clarence.
Oh, yeah. My grandkids, I say, hey, man, I was the best dancer, MC Hammer, you know, hey, man. But it was great, man. Like I said, I love the city, man. Every chance we get. Like my wife, they just had a sorority convention up there at Delta Sigma Theta.
That's right, yeah.
2 months ago, but she's a Delta, so she loves it, man. And, you know, like I said, we're going to come more often, you know. I think what she's trying to do is try to bait me to move up there now. But, she loves it there, man.
Well,
when I say she loves it.
You'll be welcomed back, and if you come back for a game, we'd love to have you come in studio, and we'll just turn on the mic, and then we'll go get something to eat, and 3 hours later we'll come back and let you know it's time, right?
Yeah.
All right, Clarence, I appreciate you partaking here on Former Colt Friday. We wish you the best to your family, and helping out your mom with the storms after that in Dulac, Louisiana. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Y'all bless y'all too, man. Thank you.
All right, Clarence Verdin, the former Colt. I'm telling you, like I'd mentioned to you, Jimmy, he was kind of like a Razor Shines type personality in that era, and the fact that he was just a beloved figure as a punt returner, the dances, and everything else. A lot of fun. And he talked about Park Tudor and high school athletics. Kyle Neddenriep covers that. He will join us next to let us know what's taking place under the lights tonight, aside from Purdue and Oregon in the state of Indiana on a Friday here on Query & Company. Kyle Neddenriep will join us in just a second here, but before that, Eddie, if you have the breaking news sounder, please. Okay, Colts head coach Shane Steichen has now let us know who is in and who is out for Miami. Quarterback Anthony Richardson and wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr. both will play against the Dolphins at Lucas Oil Stadium. However, they might have to go through the air a little more than they anticipated because running back Jonathan Taylor will not play on Sunday. So Taylor with the high ankle sprain misses another week, this time against the Dolphins of Miami. Joining us now on the Express Pro Tire and Auto guest line from the Indianapolis Star. It's Friday night. That means Friday Night Football, and Kyle Neddenriep joins us on the program to preview some of the bigger games on the slate. Kyle, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you doing, Jake?
I am well, thank you. Tonight, you are going to be at what game?
I will be heading to Martinsville, where the Artesians will be taking on Plainfield. So should be a good mid-state conference game. And the league title is on the line. Martinsville already has a share guaranteed, but can win it outright. And Plainfield at 7-1, they can tie with the win tonight. So Martinsville undefeated, so should be an awesome game.
Kyle, another marquee matchup on the slate, and it's kind of a rarity that we get to see these two schools match up in terms of recent history. But Cathedral at Warren Central tonight, 5-2 Irish versus 7-1 Warriors. How big is that matchup going to be? Where are the keys to that one?
Yeah, that should be a great game. We'll have that one covered as well. First time these teams have played. I was trying to look. I remember covering these games when they were going, but it's been 10 years since they played each other in the regular season and in total. It's a good game back on the schedule for the last game of the year, and I think it's going to continue on for a little while. So. Should be a good rivalry. Yeah, I'd say the keys, both these teams seem to be playing pretty well right now. I know, Warren was really riding high and undefeated, and then, took it on the chin to Lawrence North a couple weeks ago, but was impressed with how they rebounded last week against Carmel in impressive fashion, won that handily 32-3. And, we've talked before on this show about their defense and what they've done, throughout the season. And I think that'll be a key to tonight's game. Cathedral's been a team that, has probably been better than what a lot of people thought going into the year. They're replacing a lot from last year's team, but have really run the ball well. They have a couple dynamic receivers, too. They're not a team that throws it a ton, but they can throw it to Auburn Johnson and Dakota Slaughter. So good team. And I think the key to this one will just be can Cathedral control the ball against that defense and make a couple splash plays. I don't see this being as a real high scoring game. I think it'll be both teams want to run the ball, control the clock. And Warren's done it. I think, it's kind of, even in the loss to Lawrence North, I felt like they showed some things with the running game that would lead you to think they could improve even more there. Kendall Garnett has been over 100 yards. He was over 100 last week against Carmel, and he seems to be kind of their main ball carrier now. So it'd be a fun game. I think, I'm curious maybe as much as any game tonight how that one goes. And then, for both those teams and all of 6A, you're off next week. So you got a little time to rest, and it allows you to kind of play these Week 9 games, all out, and knowing you've got 2 weeks till your next game.
Another strong one on the slate, Franklin Central at Westfield. It looked like for a minute that FC was going to be, riding a tough season at 1-2 a couple weeks ago, but now they've had 4 straight, and Westfield has been as good as any team across the state. What stands out to you in that one tonight?
Yeah, Franklin Central's they're right on the outside of the state rankings in 6A this week, and I don't think you would have thought that, after the first 3 games of the year. They really got routed badly by Brownsburg it ended up being the third game of the third week of the year. They that week 2 was kind of, all messed up, and they didn't finish that game with Roncalli that they had. So came back and lost big to Brownsburg, then lost to Zionsville the next week, and you're kind of wondering how the season's going to go for the Flashes. But since then, they've rebounded strong. They've won a lot of close games, 4 close games in a row, the last 2 against Fishers and HSE, which, going into the year, you're not thinking that's probably likely to happen. And last week, got a late touchdown, Nevin Tutterow to Hudson Moritz there with about 30 seconds left to beat HSC 14-10. So they're a team that, again, they want a good defensive team. We had a story about them this week, just kind of gaining that confidence, as the year goes along, and that's what they've been able to do. And now they play, this will be a good test for them. They haven't beat Westfield since they joined the Hoosier Crossroads Conference in, 2018. So Westfield's very good. I would say, you in this 6A, man, it's just, it's so wide open this year. It feels like there's a lot of teams who can claim this, but they're right at the top there. Had that close loss to Brownsburg at Brownsburg a few weeks ago in that Saturday afternoon game, but have rebounded strongly. There again, a team that Deacon King, their junior running back, has just been so good throughout the year, but then they can also throw it when they need to and when they want to, with Carson Melvin and Gabe Arambolas, and they've got a good group of receivers there. So they're overall just a very good veteran team. I think a team that has big goals to get to Lucas Oil, very attainable goals. So they seem very businesslike to me. A team, I think what you're going to get night in and night out. I expect them to win this game, but this will be a huge. I think Franklin Central, a very confident team that you go into this game and a chance to get to 6 wins for the first time in a while. So something to play for here for the Flashes, and I don't know if people expected them to be third in the conference. They're sitting right behind Brownsburg and Westfield right now, and if they win this game, they'll tie Westfield for second behind Brownsburg. So a lot to play for, and Jason West, I think people would say, is one of the best coaches around with what he's done at various stops, including Lawrence Central and Warren Central, and trying to get that Franklin Central program to that level too, and he's done a nice job there in his 4 years of kind of building towards what they hope to accomplish this season.
Kyle, as we start to put a bow tie on the regular season, obviously, and looking towards the postseason, Kyle Neddenriep of the Indy Star, our guest, what players do you look at from locally speaking that maybe have entered into the Mr. Football conversation or postseason accolade conversation that you didn't have an eye on at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to, and I don't know if, I'm going to see maybe one tonight in A.J. Reynolds from Martinsville, who, when you look at his overall statistics, and again, it's kind of one of those things where it'll play out in these next few weeks as far as teams go in the tournament. That'll be part of it. So things that may look really promising now, if you get beat early, not even next week, but maybe the week after, you kind of get forgotten a little bit by the end of the year, which I think is not always fair, but, that can happen. But I think Martinsville is going to be a team that's going to be playing pretty late into the year. So I would think a guy like A.J. Reynolds, who's their quarterback, and Hunter Stroud, who is their receiver, I think those guys, with the numbers they've put up this year, have maybe put themselves, into the mix. Maybe not, they could be up for position awards and things like that. And again, you're going against the top of the top and the top 6A guys too, so that can be tough for awards like that. But some of the guys who we thought going in have probably performed, to that level. I would say, maybe Davion Chandler from Lawrence North wasn't super high on the list, and maybe he should have been, but he's had a type of season at Lawrence North where, I think he's got a chance to put himself up for the receiver award, and then that would get you in the door to be up for the top award. His numbers are really good, and he's playing on a winning, 8-0 team, and I think that always matters. When you look at the Mr. Football Award, I think Maverick Geske from Brebeuf, the quarterback, who's just put all kinds of numbers up for Brebeuf this year. Again, I think they need to probably win a few tournament games and play pretty deep into it. But I think they can. They're putting up with the numbers they're putting up on offense. There's other guys too from outside the area that I think like Concord's running back, Jerron Thomas, and they're having a great season this year, ranked number 1 in Class 5A, and I think he's a guy. He's a Purdue commit, and he's over 1,000 yards on the season and had over 1,000 last year. So I think he's a guy that maybe is rising on some lists and when people start thinking about these awards, but. I think those are a few. I think there's a lot that, a lot of the guys, too, that we talked about even before the season, I think that are still very much part of it as well. But I think those are some of the names maybe we weren't talking about before the year.
Okay, and then obviously tonight the big stunners are going to be, and you can go ahead and write your headlines now, Kyle, to cart before the horse here. North Central going to stun Ben Davis tonight. We know that. Shortridge has Greenwood Christian, I believe, tonight for Shortridge, and then Shelbyville and Pendleton Heights. I always look at the Shelbyville Golden Bears. I got roots in Shelbyville. But, Kyle, you will be, again, Plainfield, Martinsville, the game you're covering, right?
Yes, sir. Should be a great crowd, and I think great weather again. So, knock on wood, I think we're in for another great night.
All right, Kyle, we appreciate it, and we will read the coverage of all of the games at the Indianapolis Star. Appreciate you joining us today on the Express Pro Tire and Auto Guest line.
No problem. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Kyle Neddenriep from the Indianapolis Star. We come back, we'll get more into who the Colts are not going to be playing on Sunday. We know they're playing the Dolphins, but who for them are going to be in that game and who's out. We will take a further look at that and a little bit of potentially good but also troubling news out of West Lafayette for tonight's tilt with Oregon. Let you know about that as well. On the X-Post Twitter from Barstool Purdue. Aren't there like 50,000 like Barstool University
There's a bunch of
accounts?
affiliates, so it's sometimes not affiliates that use the Barstool name. Yeah.
Right. But nonetheless, just so everyone is on the same page, if we win tonight, the goalpost goes in the Wabash. And the first reply here. So that's good news, right?
Sure.
Because we're all in. First reply. The goalposts are cemented 20 feet into the ground. They're not going anywhere. But I do like this one. Actually, if we lose by anything under 65, the goalposts go in the Wabash.
Also, to be clear, there's plenty of engineers at Purdue. Surely they can cook up a way to bring those goalposts down, right? I mean,
excellent point as well.
For nothing else.
Now, here's one guy that posts a picture of him hanging for dear life on the goalposts. This is me mere seconds before getting drug off when the goalpost by a fat cop wearing sunglasses backwards on his head. Time to finish what I started. I don't think I'm going to be down there partaking in the goalpost tearing, but I might run alongside and take credit.
Well, if Shannon has her way, you might not make it to the field.
That's correct. I believe, did she say we're staying for an hour? Is that what
I heard,
she said?
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
Unconfirmed, but potentially confirmed.
That's right.
I thought you were going to say something tragic, like somebody went duck hunting with the duck. Like I was very worried that,
I'm hoping the duck's going to be there.
We had a missing persons thing going on.
The entire goal is a picture with the duck.
Yes.
I will go crazy if I can get a picture with the duck.
I expect that in the show group chat if you end up successfully finding that.
It's going on the
photo op.
It's going on the Book of Faces everywhere.
Also, for some reason, the giant inflatable duck is there too. I would appreciate it. You don't have to take a picture with that one, but just a picture from afar would be great.
I will not pull a Seinfeld with Woody Woodpecker on the inflatable duck. Okay, so for the Colts, Jimmy, are you surprised? We're going to talk to Kevin Bowen, going to join us here coming up just about 15 minutes, but does the Jonathan Taylor news surprise you?
No. I mean, they can dress it up however they want in the last couple of days, and he can say all of the right things, but given that type of injury, it's not, with it being a high ankle or an ankle sprain in and of itself, the idea of putting him on IR is too extreme for me. We talked about that earlier in the week because you're forcing him to miss a minimum of 4 games at that point, but the idea of resting him up and getting him a spot of additional week of recovery when you have this gauntlet of games upcoming, fair, I think makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so if they had a bye next week, does he play? I mean, it's kind of
I still think no, just
but
because then that would further add to their decision making of not only do we get this week off against Miami for him to recover, but you would also get then the bye week. So no, I don't think that impacts anything. I think the only thing it would change, if you're putting out an extreme scenario for me, if this was a game that win or elimination from playoff contention, then maybe. But otherwise, no, I think there's going to be very careful and precautionary with him.
Eddie, you seem to agree with that.
Yeah, I don't think he was playing even if this was a do or die game.
Every game in the NFL is a do or die game, right?
Like if Jimmy said it was like win or go home.
Yeah, no, he's playing.
No,
he's playing. Yeah, he is. He absolutely is. He absolutely is. So. Jonathan Taylor is a full force competitor. If it's an opportunity to get back to the playoffs, he's playing in that do or die game.
I don't think he would be.
I always got a kick out of, and I've always gotten a kick out of this.
Because he needs to practice in order to play. Like I don't think
that position.
Yes.
Not with what he does for that team. He does not. We've discussed that in past weeks.
I know you guys feel that way, but I don't.
He's a traditional running back. You're not utilizing him in the passing game. You can get away with him not practicing for a week.
I don't think so.
I would be if your argument's going to be that you think he would put his health over a do or die game, then I'm maybe willing to hear you out on it. But I'm not concerned about him not practicing and then not going. He is a traditional style running back.
In other words, what you are saying, Jimmy, is he is one player that the combination of his ability and the combination of the plays in which he would be involved when he is in a game situation, he is one player that has the biggest margin for error of non-practice time to be able to be plugged into play.
And he's not a rookie. He's a veteran. Like, I'm not trying to say that life in the NFL is easy by any stretch, but, like, what you're going to ask him to do is not something that a week's worth of practice would suddenly reinvent the role that he's doing.
I don't know the answer to this. One of you guys can look this up. But it feels to me like, we talk a lot about Anthony Richardson's lack of durability and how it has to become a question mark in the fact that in 23 available games, he has finished 4 games of the 23. Are we overlooking that Jonathan Taylor, is it starting to feel like Jonathan Taylor is the same style of player where he's a wonderful talent, but we know, at least with Taylor, we know the talent is there, right? We know the production is there. But is durability starting to become, why do we not discuss that durability with the same level?
Because he's shown it.
He played 11 of 16 and 22. I can't remember if that was 16 or 17 game season. 10 games last year. He's played 4 this year.
Yeah, I think the reason that you don't do it the same way is because you've seen Jonathan Taylor perform at the highest level for an extended period of time. Also, Anthony Richardson doesn't need like defending or protection, but like that stat about 4 starts in 24 or 23, whatever the number is, that's a stat I really don't like, because the way it's presented makes it seem like it's this week-to-week coddling that we're talking about. Last year he was out for the year. Like, I get it. It's factual. There's nothing like bad about that stat. It's true. But he didn't really have opportunities to play last year once you have a season-ending injury. I just think that is further magnifying a problem that is real, but it's making it seem like the way it was initially presented, not by you, but when it was first reported on, makes it seem like that last year, like he had a choice to miss those games. Like it was season-ending injury. That's it. You're done. It's over. So that doesn't have any bearing for me on the trajectory of his career. But if he's going to continue to have little hiccups where he's missing 2 games here, 3 games here, 2 games here, then those numbers start to stack up and bug me. But last year, I largely account to a wash because it was very early in the season and it was a season-ending procedure and injury.
It does feel like the Trey Sermon now suddenly becomes, again, important on the injury report, because if he did go today, just so people know, Trey Sermon did go today. Normally that would not be something that you would say, Trey Sermon, why are we talking about Trey Sermon's availability? Well, that's if Jonathan Taylor's not able to go, then you need Trey Sermon there. He did go today, and apparently he had a sore knee, right?
I would dare the Colts to throw on Sunday, right? Like, that's how you're attacking this if you're Miami. No disrespect to Sermon or Goodson, but like, Anthony Richardson's that unicorn.
You would dare them to run?
No, I mean, I would focus on any schematic focused on run defense, be it Anthony Richardson, be it Sermon, be it Goodson, because I think that is the main trick in the bag that Anthony Richardson has if you're an opposing defense, is his ability to run. And without Jonathan Taylor now, I would totally try to take that away entirely.
You don't think you don't think that's gone altogether? In other words, if you're the Dolphins, aren't you looking at it saying, okay, their run game, now what we need to do is drop back and just challenge them to throw against us because I can't run?
Because I would look at it from the standpoint of, if I'm the Colts and I need big chunk plays to keep a defense honest, not just throwing it 40, 45 times a game with Anthony Richardson, who's going to carry the football? I mean, maybe you try Goodson and Sermon, but if they have a week like they did a week ago or 2 weeks ago, Richardson's going to have to be the one to do it with his legs, unless you're getting into jet sweep motion or if you're just becoming more exotic with the run game.
If you are the Colts, though, do you dial that up? If you're the Colts, do you dial Anthony Richardson's number on the ground routinely in this game?
No. I would keep it as, I would be cautious and balanced with his legs, unless it's got to have it downs or late game situations.
Because the one thing about Anthony Richardson that, and I think there is an Andrew Luck PTSD a little bit that goes into it for the franchise itself, and that is...
Are you talking front office or fan base, just to clarify?
Front office.
Okay.
What is interesting to me is the thing that makes Anthony Richardson so unique, and the thing that makes Anthony Richardson so intriguing, is the dual threat nature of the fact that he is a big physical player that seemingly can run, but at the same time, and I know that there are stops in between, but for the most part, he is the immediate replacement from a franchise young player build around kind of guy, of a guy who, one could argue, his career was shortened by the physical beating from running the football, not sliding, taking hits, staying up too late. And so, and I don't mean staying awake at night too late. I mean staying up too late on plays before sliding to the ground.
Yeah.
And so do the Colts, as a result of that, have tendency now to kind of back away, if that makes sense, of not going to the thing that makes, if Richardson was just a pocket passer, Miami probably would love for Anthony Richardson to do nothing but try to throw the ball, because he has not shown yet that he can consistently do that with accuracy.
Yeah.
The way that you open things up for him is by throwing the run in there so defenses are kind of on their heels and then up and then on their heels and then up and anticipating what he is going to do. If you take that away, then he is just a middling, inaccurate quarterback. And they have yet to really uncork that because as he comes off injury, you have to wonder how much they're going to worry about that kind of thing and just say, we're not going to go there. But where we are going to go is next to Kevin Bowen, who joins us. We'll find out what his son's pick is for the game and everything that happened today on West 56. That conversation with Kevin is next on this Friday edition, Query and Company on The Fan. Good for the Heart Friday coming up bottom of the hour. Thank you to Clarence for Dan earlier, an hour ago for former Colt Friday. And then on Fridays, we also talk to Kevin Bowen. You hear him in the morning, of course, on the wake-up call with KB and Andy as the Colts are getting set for Miami on Sunday. We just talked about Jonathan Taylor out, Anthony Richardson, Michael Pittman Jr. in, according to Shane Steichen. Kevin Bowen in as well with us now on the Express Pro Tire and Auto guest line. Kevin, other players of note that we're keeping an eye on that could be in or out, do we have clarification beyond those that I just mentioned?
You said Taylor and Lamont were the two ruled out. Is that what you said? Just Michael Pittman Jr. good to go. He was at practice on Thursday this week. So he did not practice today. A little different practice schedule for him this week than last week. But he is good to go. Again, Anthony Richardson's going to start. I feel like for the most part, they're relatively healthy. Again, DeForest Buckner still not back yet. And then Alec Pierce missed yesterday, but he was out there today. So, unless I'm missing something, and feel free to throw a name at me, I feel like they're in decent shape compared to where they've been in on some of these Fridays.
Kevin, I want to look at Miami for a second. We know that they're expecting better play, more confidence from Tyler Huntley, but it looks like they're going to get a key piece back in Devon Achane. He's cleared concussion protocol, say the beat writers down in Miami. He's in line to play Sunday versus the Colts. Having him back, another weapon in this Mike McDaniel offense that, as time, as I've called that, has looked like a 1 to 15 type of offense. How does that change things? How does that change the game plan for Gus Bradley defensively?
Yeah, I think it's a great point to bring up. He's a weapon. He's a weapon with the ball in his hands. And in general, I think that is why my worry level for Sunday is at a higher level than it was when we spoke last Friday at this time. I don't know if Snoop Huntley is overwhelmingly better than Will Levis, but I think their potent ability with guys making the plays post-catch is much more there than with Tennessee. And that's why, honestly, I'm probably as confused as you are that their offense hasn't been better. I mean, they're dead last in the NFL in scoring, 12 points per game. And even with, poor, inexperienced quarterback play, without Tua, I just still think they would be able to kind of scheme up some stuff to get, again, those playmakers some opportunities. It's kind of an oddity, when you bring up Achane, and it's actually the second time the Colts have ever faced Tyreek Hill. They haven't faced him in a regular season game since 2016. They did see him in the playoff game, so it's just kind of weird to think Tyreek Hill has not played against an AFC team more than once. I think every team he has besides Kansas City and Indy. So these Colts skill players, or Colts defenders, I should say, obviously Tyreek Hill, his speed is pretty evident, but seeing that firsthand, how they react to that, I think will be something to keep an eye on.
Kevin, do you think in any way that the playbook changes or becomes more thin as Richardson comes off injury and they slowly work back in a higher number of plays? We were just talking about the number of run plays they may orchestrate for him or the way they utilize him. Do they feel that out, or have they done that through the practice process and now it's just let it rip?
Yeah, I would say no. I would certainly hope the run game is much more expansive with Richardson and the ability to, have different elements off of that than it would have been with Flacco. Maybe there's a limitation or two from a pass game standpoint, or just stuff maybe Flacco feels a little bit more comfortable with, quick rhythm, those sorts of things, than Richardson would. But certainly the run game, that should have a revival, even without Taylor. I brought this up this morning. You look back to last year and just Zach Moss's numbers with Richardson in the lineup versus Gardner Minshew. I mean, it was a stark contrast how much better they were with Richardson than Minshew. So, for the likes of Tyler Goodson and Trey Sermon, whoever's running it, that should be a little bit more productive, I would think, on Sunday. So, maybe that was part of why they ended up, pulling the reins back this time last week on Richardson. Maybe they didn't feel like enough of that was open to them. So I would assume, that aspect of the offense will be much more prevalent on Sunday.
Kevin, we've talked about Michael Pittman Jr. in a way this year that he's basically quarterback proof, and that regardless who the quarterback is, he is such an adept wide receiver that he's still going to be able to make his presence and his play felt on the field. Has Josh Downs reached that territory for you through 6 games this season?
Good question. I don't know if he's quarterback proof to the number of catches. To be fair, we didn't really see him with Richardson a lot this season because Downs made his debut in week 3, is that right? And Richardson left obviously week 4. So, part of me looks at Richardson and thinks he's probably throwing the ball more to Downs than any other player on this team. Just rookie minicamp, and they're great friends, and just that aspect to it. And Downs was having a great training camp until the injury with Richardson. So I think that should be noted. It hit me in training camp. I'm like, wow, Josh Downs might lead the team in catches. And lo and behold, here we are in week 7. Josh Downs has missed 2 games and already has more catches than Michael Pittman Jr. on the season. So that's certainly trending to be happening there. So I still think Joe Flacco deserves some credit and acknowledgement for finding Downs and realizing that, Josh Downs on a linebacker is, almost a foolproof way to the Colts finding an advantage there. And they certainly have tried to expose that in recent weeks. So assuming Richardson, can look for those one-on-one matchups and find that, you would like to think that Downs would still be as effective as he has been.
It's really kind of absurd, admittedly, Kevin, to bring this up because if you look, and we've talked about it, I know, Reggie Wayne, there have been receivers for the Colts in the NFL in general that they don't get going until sometimes even year 2. But I want to go back to A.D. Mitchell and just kind of the question marks about him. Do the Colts now with A.D. Mitchell continue to go to that well to try to get him going, or eventually do they kind of back away from him to let him kind of grow organically without spotlight on him?
Yeah, I would say just based off the recent playing time for him, they're not playing him a ton. I'd have to double check it, but I would assume somewhere around 15 snaps each of the last couple of weeks since Downs has been healthy, and then Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman Jr., of course, eat up a lot. Maybe if Pittman snaps were limited in any way, which, again, he practiced 2 days this week, or I should say he practiced Thursday this week, not Friday, whereas last week there was just a Friday session for him. So, again, unless Pittman Jr. was really scaled back from a role standpoint, I don't see why all of a sudden they'd say, here, A.D. Mitchell, here's, 40 snaps in a game when he's only been playing 15. So I still think he brings some things and is able to get open that they want to see if, that can hit. And maybe you're not looking for him in critical situations, but, Pierce has obviously shown stuff on film. Downs has obviously shown stuff on film. Pittman Jr. has proven to be pretty consistent over the years. If you forget about Mitchell and he's open, obviously hitting him and him making the catch remains to be seen, but there is at least an ability there. And it probably should be noted too, Ashton Doolin is still kind of in that same sort of role as kind of a 15-snap guy. So I don't see anything out of the ordinary for him, but at the same time, he's playing a little bit more than a dozen snaps, and I think it's fine to throw a target or 2 his way, and if he starts to earn more of that, then that's stuff you can tap into as the season moves along.
Kevin Bowen is our guest. He joins us on the Express Pro Tire and Auto guest line. You can hear him weekdays 7 to 10 a.m. on the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on these very airwaves. Kevin, we discussed this briefly earlier in the week, and admittedly, it is just observational commentary more than an actual impact on the game. But this is at Lucas Oil. It's Richardson's first game back since the injury, and you're trying to get him back in a rhythm where Joe Flacco has looked somewhat of the part of a quarterback that a contender would, I know the Colts aren't that, but that a contender would be content with if he was your backup guy. It's a preamble to say, if Richardson struggles on Sunday, do you think there are boo birds or tumultuous anxiety within the fan base?
Boy, booing a quarterback inside of Lucas Oil Stadium certainly brings up some memories. I would say no would be my short answer. I think certainly you would hear chatter, maybe more so on a rake straw fielding a call or two on a post-game show, or certainly one of our shows on a Monday. But there's definitely a section of the fan base that would like to see Flacco. I think if you pulled it out, though, I don't know if that percentage would be – I don't think it'd be higher than 20. I think for the most part, and not to speak for you two, but you two obviously have been in the market as well, I mean, Brissett won 7 games. Rivers won 11. Matt Ryan won barely any. Carson Wentz won 9. Gardner Minshew won 9. I mean, Brissett, I think, started again and won X amount of games. We've done it. We've seen it. And so I think for the most part, the fan base realizes that doing that again when Joe Flacco is 2 months shy of his 40, and this is how old Joe Flacco is. I just got done asking questions about throwing touchdown passes to Dallas Clark. Dallas Clark is going in the Colts Ring of Honor on Sunday, and Flacco spent an entire season with him. And that wasn't even Flacco's rookie year either. So I think the Band-Aid approach has been done. So as much as you might live in a little bit of a moment of, let's be mad about it, I think big picture-wise, most fans understand that at least attempting a Richardson growth developmental season is probably the best route.
Kevin, I proposed this question yesterday, so I'll rope you into the conversation here. Which player will we first have definitive answer on whether or not it's the route you want to go and they're a guy that's going to be here for a long time? Anthony Richardson or Jarris Walker?
Well, I guess my first thought is there obviously has to be far different
Correct
roles for their respective franchises. I mean, I think we're potentially somewhat close on Walker having. I mean, unless something changes, I would assume he's in the rotation here to start the season. Now, NBA development for 18-year-olds, I guess in a way, could be similar to Anthony Richardson, given his lack of college experience. So, obviously guys grow into different roles throughout their respective NBA careers. You've even seen that with a guy like Andrew Nemhard, who was a much more experienced college player than Jarris Walker was. So, basically with Richardson, I'm at this point of the first decision has to come at the end of next season, financially. Literally. I mean, that's the first time. That's when you pick up or make the decision whether to pick up his fifth-year option or not. They did that with Kwity Paye this past offseason. All first-round picks have a 4-year deal. You can tack on a fifth-year team option, and that is a decision that must be made in May after their third season. So for Richardson, that would be May of 2026. So, again, this time next year, you probably need to start to see some obvious clarity one way or the other on that. Walker, if I'm not mistaken, I think is probably on a little bit more team control. I think NBA contracts are a little bit friendlier in that realm. But I don't know. I think it's just kind of hard to answer because Richardson's asked to be, on the side of Lucas Oil Stadium. And, Jarris Walker was drafted high, but he obviously is not asked to do anywhere near what Richardson's being asked to do.
The other side of that being Walker's going to get a lot more opportunities because there's, as Eddie pointed out yesterday, there's 5 times the number of games, right? You know what I mean? So he's got more chance to show. But, for Richardson, Walker was kind of in a logjam. Richardson it was all there for him, but obviously just the health has been an issue and a question mark. And, if the only thing holding back the Colts, Kevin, from knowing what Anthony Richardson is availability, does that still favor in the direction of you go with it? Because, in other words, would they hold that against him, or would they say, look, so long as he can stay healthy, we know this guy can play, we got to go with it and sign it?
Yeah, that's a good point, because right now, Jake, we have ability questions and availability questions. We have both of them. So that's why, that's why he's got to be out there. He's got to play. I mean, I don't know if I said it to you guys, but I think Eddie and I talked about it in the podcast, and it's kind of a ludicrous thing to even say right now. But let's say Anthony Richardson started and finished every game the rest of the season. Again, ludicrous thought to say given his injury history in the NFL, but let's say he did that. That would give him 15 games in his NFL career. He has started and finished. C.J. Stroud right now is already at 17 such games. And that doesn't include, obviously, the rest of Houston's season. So think back to C.J. Stroud's college career. I mean, he started many more games and was on bigger stages, frankly, than Anthony Richardson. So just from a time on task standpoint, and again, I'm not even factoring ability right now, which obviously the two couldn't be on further ends of their ability accomplishments in the NFL through a year and a half. So, yeah, to simple it down, he just got to play, period.
Kevin, with a quarterback that's still struggling with command and accuracy issues and a running back in a star of Jonathan Taylor not being out there, if you're the Dolphins defensively, how do you attack Indianapolis? Do you dare them to throw or do you dare them to run?
Well, I think you dare them to throw because I do think Richardson brings a run element that is different. You know, if you watch Tennessee, they could just crash that defensive end right down, and there's no need to respect Flacco from a, again, read option standpoint. That's different with Richardson, and I'll go back to kind of what I said, I guess, at the start of the interview of, look at Zach Moss's run numbers from last season. It was not like Richardson was running, for 80 yards or 90 yards. And Zach Moss was over a yard per carry more with Richardson than it was Minshew. So, yeah, I would think with Miami it's still got to be take away the run game, the multiple elements of the run game, and then
are you using more RPOs or more options like that without Jonathan Taylor? Are you trying to utilize your pass catching backs more than you would otherwise to try to keep things fresh?
Yeah, I think you probably have to tap into a little bit more of that. I would like to see a big flip in snaps and carries for Tyler Goodson versus Trey Sermon. I think last week it was like 42 snaps for Sermon, 27 for Goodson. I would say flip that. I would say flip the amount of carries as well. So that is something that I think I would like to see much different from last week.
Kevin, tonight I'm going to the Oregon-Purdue game.
Uh-huh.
I've already made the declaration that if Purdue's hanging around, and they're going to shock the world tonight, Purdue is, they're going to derail Oregon's season. Do I partake in the goalpost going into Wabash, or do I just kind of run alongside and act like I'm part of it? Am I too old for that?
Oh no, we need you on the goalpost. Like there's a few that actually climb up it.
Right.
Yeah, we need you up there. Yeah,
okay.
We need Shannon calling to get you down from up there.
Okay. Yeah, she seemed more like into the idea of partaking in the goalpost teardown than she did. She wasn't aware that they are the Ducks, and she doesn't know that this is really a quest about us getting a photo taken with the duck itself. Now, that's cool, too, right, if I get a photo with the duck?
Oh, sure. Are they bringing that inflatable duck they brought to Big Ten Media Day?
That's that is the hope, right? I mean, that's the whole goal. Because here's the thing. I mean, listen, I'm all about going up there and tailgating and whatever else, but I just want to see, like, for your son, for example, and your daughter, kids love the duck. And if they have the inflatable duck, that is – now we're talking party on the Wabash,
yes.
Right?
Yeah, that's a game changer. Now, I know you've gone straight up money line, and I've heard this for several months now. I just need 4 touchdowns. I have laid, I wouldn't say it's a mortgage payment, but it's close to a mortgage payment down on the Boilers for tonight. So, Ryan Walters, emotional
at plus 30?
For Oregon. I got it at 27.5. I think it's rising, which I'm like,
it's plus 30 now. That's why.
Purdue's getting 30.
They're getting 30 points.
Why is it rising? Does Ryan Brown have food poisoning? What
Push all in on this. Purdue's going to win.
I have no idea. Todd, do you have any speculation as to why it's plus 30 now? Why it's moved 3 points? Oh, it said because they're not very good. Is what was.
Did nobody see what happened against Illinois? Sleep on them all you want. I'm telling you. Here it comes, right?
Hey, Kevin, second mortgage for 30. Are you going to cash out and kind of reassess some things? Maybe the 529, perhaps.
Yeah, I got it. I got to look in the mirror if I'm doing some of that stuff.
Look, Oregon's got a long flight. I'm telling you, this is it's all set up perfectly.
It's one of those games where I'm almost like, if you can't cover 30 with a fellow conference opponent who is traveling 3 time zones on a short week, the Big Ten should almost kick Purdue out of the conference tonight if they can't cover 30.
Cover?
Plus 2,000, by the way, on
I'm
the money
telling
line,
you guys.
for those interested.
Like, Shannon is in for a disappointment because she said, she's like, now, we're going to stay for like an hour, right? And I'm like, yeah, unless Purdue shocks the world. And when that bad boy's 28-27, late in the fourth, I'm like, we're not leaving. We're not going. We're not leaving. We're rushing the field.
Have you thrown the I know you do this during the Super Bowl. You like to bet on all the individuals to win the MVP. Like, I think one year you actually bet on the long snappers.
That's right.
To win MVP. Have you thrown like $1 or $2?
$10 on Purdue outright is $210 total cash out there. So
how much is it?
It's plus 2,000. So if you put $10 on it, you're walking away with your $10 bet plus $200 cash.
Oh, listen, I don't believe in theft, which is what that is. Purdue's going to win the game. Purdue's. I'm telling you, Purdue's going to win. Plus, I got to save my money because I haven't found parking yet. So
I'm just picturing you on the little windsock on top of the goalpost there at about 11:33 p.m. tonight.
I'm telling you. Now, apparently, the goalpost is like embedded 20 feet into the ground, so it's not going down.
No,
but
the engineers, man, they can get through that. I believe it wholeheartedly.
Kevin, what do we have here in terms of your son's pick for the game?
Yeah, obvious one. Yeah, Dolphins.
You
yeah.
called
I mean,
it.
Yeah.
You called it. Like any dad, you called it weeks ago. You bring the animal mascots out, and it's going to be tough.
Yeah. So, at the start of the year, I chalked up. He'll pick the Jags twice. He'll pick the Dolphins, and he'll pick the Lions. So far, he picked the Jags. He'll be with Man Campbell, I know, next month, and I think the finale, he'll be back with the Jags. So, yeah, he was pretty decisive. He went, the Dolphins helmet from a white into their other color schemes. It is a similar helmet to the Colts, in just the general amount of white that's on the helmet. So I was curious if that would throw him off. But, boy, you get the Dolphin on both sides. And
there's something about those tropical colors, man.
Did you go?
I'm there with him.
Which helmet do you have? Do you have the newer, like, swimming Dolphin, or do you have wearing the little helmet jumping through the hoop Dolphin helmet?
I think it was jumping through the hoop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, like the old school Dolphin. You have the old school Dolphins helmet.
Yeah, he was foaming at the mouth. I mean, it was like, I just told him that he could have a treat. He was obsessed.
That's a solid helmet for sure. But last thing, Kevin, I mean, honestly, if you are the Colts and you're trying to get back onto the right side of things, this, all kidding and flippancy aside, does it not, like a matchup that is coming at the right time? Because at no disrespect to Miami, they just are a totally different team at the quarterback position, and that totally changes who they are. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, again, I think they're a notch above Tennessee in the worry level, but not much more than that. And it's neat. I mean, if you want to look at AFC standings, as crazy as that sounds, it's needed. If you try to project out a wild card down the road, it's not one that mid-October we probably pay attention to, but mid-December I think we will. So that is important as well. And look at the schedule upcoming. I believe in the next 5 weeks, you play 4 of the top 8 teams in the league after Sunday, and the one that's not, that's the Jets on Sunday Night Football there in New York. So still, I don't think a complete pushover by any means. So, yes, need to get to 4-3, and if Houston loses at Green Bay, all of a sudden you could be tied atop the AFC South if you somehow pull off the upset next week in Houston.
All right, I know you guys will be talking about that and more coming up 7 o'clock, the wake-up call with KB and Andy Monday at 7. Kevin, enjoy the weekend, all right? Appreciate it.
Good luck climbing the goalpost. See you, boys.
That's right. Get me a stepladder, baby, I'm telling you. Look for me on the local news tonight, right? I probably would just be off to the side filming. Those days are long past me. Derek Schultz tells the story about when he was at an Indiana-Wisconsin game and he rushed the field and he got about 20 yards out and realized he was the only one rushing the field.
That's tough.
Yeah, you don't want to be that guy,
man.
Right?
That's brutal. I think that's about as bad as it gets for post-game celebrations where you didn't wind up, on the internet.
I mean, does it surprise you at all that that nobody would follow his suit?
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's Friday. It's a feel-good Friday from our friends at Franciscan Health. And I've got not one but 2 stories that involve, when you were a kid, did you like Barney? Is Barney of your guys' wheelhouse?
Of course, yeah.
Who doesn't like purple, right?
Yeah.
I got 2 different stories that involve the color purple. Not the movie, but rather feel-good stories, and we'll do it on the other side. By the way, if you go back to actually last year, we had a fabulous time for our golf outing with the Fan, presented by Franciscan Health at Back 9. And Back 9 is where JMV is going to be today. So you have plenty of time to get down there. It is an awesome view of downtown Indianapolis, especially up on the third level of the bays overlooking downtown. And then, of course, if you want to swing the club around, it's going to be a perfect night for it. You got plenty of time to get out there to listen to JMV, talk a little sports, get you set for the Colts game as well. And he'll be doing so from the Back 9 today starting at 3 o'clock. And it was at that event, of course, Franciscan Health was there and present. And one of the things that we talked about, as we always do each and every Friday for our Feel Good, Good for the Heart Friday, is talk about Franciscan and their dedication towards making sure that you are on top of it when it comes to your cardiovascular care. Now, I want to talk to you notably if you are over the age of 40 and if you've got any of the following symptoms: high blood pressure, cholesterol, you battle with diabetes or obesity, if you are a current or former smoker, or if, like me, you just simply have a family heart history. Somebody in your heart or in your family, has battled with whether it be any of those symptoms that I just mentioned, or if they've had a heart attack, stroke, whatever it might be. One of the ways that you can get on top of your cardiovascular health and making sure you're staying on top of it is with a heart scan, which is very affordable, just $49 from Franciscan Health. You can self-refer, pay out of pocket. You get a free heart health risk assessment that comes with it. It is non-invasive. You basically just go through, it's almost just like, one of those, like, you go through the little tube, and then it will let you know just exactly how much blockage you might have or how much buildup of calcium you could have within your heart. And then you get on that program, and they're able to kind of forecast for you what your heart health looks like and what your risk assessment is. And so, therefore, you get all of that from Franciscan for just $49. Schedule a $49 heart scan at franciscanhealth.org/screening bundles. That's franciscanhealth.org/screening bundles. You can always text me as well, and I will happily send along to you the phone number, which is 833-238-0688. That's the Franciscan number. That's not my phone number. I think most people have my cell phone number by now. Think about when you were in high school. This time of year in particular is always fun when you think about high school sports and, your later years, your upper class years, junior and senior year. I can recall this time of year having the senior bonfire, for example. And also as a junior, I remember kind of the, comfort and all of a sudden towards the latter part of your junior year for the first time, at least at a big school like where I went. That was the first time where the seniors kind of start to embrace you a little bit and start to get the ball rolling on passing on that torch, knowing that you're going to be the senior class a year later. And it really is kind of this feeling of maturity or coming of age that takes place. And sports oftentimes has a lot to do with that exact same process, right? Where people just think, because of sports, they look up to the players that are older. So you can only imagine what it's like when you have a younger player that is a leader on a team and then suddenly is gone. Even the seniors feel that loss. Like, for example, let's go to Brownsburg High School. Elizabeth Lantrip is a really talented junior soccer player for the Brownsburg girls soccer team who just became sectional champions last week. Their season is now complete. They were defeated by Carmel 1-0 in regionals. But sometimes victory comes not necessarily in going all the way, but finding inspiration from within your own teammates, which was the case when they were playing Ben Davis in the early rounds of sectional. And Elizabeth, who had 13 goals on the season, has been a leader for them as a junior. And she plants just before halftime of that game and all of a sudden feels something. And then, as often happens, once the adrenaline, kind of the shock of what in the world did I just feel kind of pop, wears off, she feels this just terrible pain and realizes that she has a broken fibula, she has a broken ankle, and her season right there in the flash of an eye is over with. And that means she's going to have surgery. And not only is she going to have surgery, but the surgery is scheduled when her teammates are going to advance, of course, because they had won and they're against Ben Davis, and now they got to go take on Plainfield. And she says to her teammates, like, no, I'll be there. And they're like, Elizabeth, we understand that, but you have to have surgery on your leg. And oftentimes when players get hurt, sometimes they might have kind of lofty expectations or goals, and you say to yourself, oh, no, yeah, we completely believe in you. And in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I don't know that she's going to be able to make it back. But Elizabeth had that goal, and she made sure that when she went in for her surgery, even though it was a multi-hour surgery, that they had her kit, if you will. Jimmy, I use the term kit for soccer. Thank you very much. That they had it there for her, but that she had her colors so that she could go straight from the hospital after the surgery, and once she kind of recuperated from that, and then in that evening be able to go and watch her teammates take on playing field. And that's exactly what she did. Made it on the sidelines, was there, was the inspiration, and yes, her 13 goals were not going to be able to be 14 in the game, but it did matter because her goal of being on the sidelines and being there for her teammates was met. And that was enough right there, perhaps, to lift her teammates to not only win that game, but again, also beat Avon then for the sectional title and advance to regionals, all the while Elizabeth, who will be able to play next year, was there to lift them from the sidelines. And yes, there are those that might have doubted whether or not she was going to be able to do that and have that determination coming immediately off surgery. But sometimes contribution comes not from what happens in the box score, but rather from emotional lift and showing others that belief can become reality. And congratulations to Elizabeth in taking a bad situation and turning it into a positive one and lifting her teammates to not just one but two more victories and enabling them to put something in the trophy case of a sectional championship that they'll look back on years from now, but they'll say, what I never will forget is when Elizabeth showed up on that sideline right off of that surgery and showed us that, in fact, her determination became reality of getting back there and being there for her teammates. Now, I mentioned Ben Davis because that's who they defeated. We mentioned this yesterday, but one other very cool story. Years ago, when I was doing radio, I got to know Greg Poley and his wife, Julie, because Greg was a listener of the show. He's become, just a good guy in the community, obviously, but somebody that I think most of us at the radio station know because he's been a supporter of a lot of the different radio shows that we do. Julie, herself a teacher, has had me go out and talk to the different kids that she's worked with on the West Side. Greg's very involved in the baseball program, so Eddie, I would assume you know him from that. And he got involved in baseball because his son Owen was a baseball player, but Owen had a passion for radio broadcasting. And in that capacity, decided to go to Indiana State because he thought that gave him the best opportunity to become a radio broadcaster. And what a week it's been for Owen, who, like a lot of us, myself included, you have the bravado that, like, freshman year of college is always like, oh, it's awesome, I love it. But sometimes it's difficult to just kind of get acclimated and go from doing a lot of broadcasting at a Ben Davis or a North Central or Carmel or a Warren and go to a school where you got to wait your turn and earn your stripes. And Owen went through that last year as a freshman at ISU. But now not only found out this week that he's going to be the sports director of the station there, but we mentioned it yesterday, got handpicked out of the crowd to go down as a student on the floor at the Holman Center in Terre Haute. I can't imagine putting a golf ball on hardwood. That alone, I would think, would be kind of a challenge in terms of the direction of it.
You know how you know it's crazy? They don't even do that at putt-putt. Like, even putt-putt hasn't gotten to the point, or mini golf, where
Correct.
You're putting on wood.
On wood,
like, they
right?
still give you fake grass, right?
Correct. So he gets out there, has to go the length of the floor for a hole-in-one. Bada boom, bada bing, 10 grand. So 10 grand to Owen. I already told Greg. I said, look, if I'd have invested $10,000 in Amazon when I was in college, here's what I'd have today. But Owen probably should do with it. I think paying off tuition is going to be a part of it, what he would like. But to see him continue to chase the dream and now advance his career, it was a fun video to watch him hit that hole-in-one, but it's more fun to know that he is continuing in college to do the things that he set out to do, just like, for example, Elizabeth set out to do on the soccer field and lifting her teammates as well. Young people doing great things around the area. That's the stuff that makes you feel good, and a Good for the Heart Friday brought to you by Franciscan Health. Again, just $49 for a heart screening, and you get everything that comes with it in terms of the heart health risk assessment. FranciscanHealth.org/screening bundles is the website. We'll come back. We'll get Jimmy's plays of the day and give you guarantees for the weekend, like Purdue over Oregon, on the other side.
Today's plays of the day brought to you by the fine folks at Greenfield Signs and Lighting. Greenfield Signs, a professional comprehensive sign company with 2 locations in central Indiana. They'll take your signage ideas and take hold of the project from design all the way to delivery. Family-owned and managed business for more than 4 generations. You don't often get a second chance to make a first impression. Make the most out of your first opportunity with the fine folks over at Greenfield Signs and Lighting. For more information, go to greenfieldsigns.com. Today's plays of the day, a good mix of college football as well as a look at the weekend slate as well. We will start first with ALCS game number 4 tonight between the New York Yankees and the Cleveland Guardians. I think momentum has shifted in this series to an extent. I'm not saying that the boat's totally out for the Yankees, but they're pitching rookie Luis Hill on the mound tonight. I think the Guardians are able to get after them early. I think Cleveland takes this game. They're plus 100 currently on the money line. The other matchup is the first game, so we're out of order in that regard, of tonight's doubleheader. That is NLCS, game number 5 now, Eddie? Am I correct in that? Game
that
number
would be
4.
accurate, James
Game
Cook.
number 5 as the Los Angeles Dodgers look to close things out over the New York Mets. I think they do just that. Give me the Dodgers over the Mets. Look, I'm on board to an extent with Jake tonight. I don't have quite the courage or the goal that he does. I can never be the type of man that one Jake Query is. I think we could all establish that at this stage.
Shock the world, baby.
But I am willing to get in a little bit, and that is by scooping 30. I'm with Kevin Bowen. If Purdue can't cover a 30-point spread, you might as well jettison them to the Mountain West or somewhere else. So I'm going to scoop 30 there for Purdue. On Saturday in college football, I'll do some more scooping. I'll scoop the 5. Louisville is 5-point dogs when they welcome in Miami. That is a noon kick. Miami's had 2 close ones.
Hold on.
I will take the Cardinals.
Miami's going to boat race Louisville.
Scoop the 5 there for the Cardinal. Additionally, I will lay 6.5 on the Indiana Hoosiers as they take on Nebraska. That big noon kickoff, going to be a fun one when they take on Nebraska. Last college bet for you, I'll lay 3 on Alabama on the road against Tennessee. In the National Football League, look, it's very rare that you see my boys, the Kansas City Chiefs, at plus odds. I'm going to take them on the money line on the road against San Francisco. They are currently at plus 105. Last one for you, I will take the Detroit Lions to win the money line over the Minnesota Vikings, that game in Minnesota. I'll save my Colts prediction for the end. Eddie, any plays from you?
Yes, sir. I will start with Major League Baseball tonight. I would take the over on outs recorded for Mr. Jack Flaherty at 15.5 or 16.5. I think he goes 6 innings. I think this Mets offense is dead. And he got him good in game number 2 or game 1. I can't remember which. I think it was game 1 back in L.A. I don't think the Dodgers end it tonight, but I don't have the courage to take the Mets. I think it's a lower scoring game tonight between the 2 teams. I think the Dodgers offense is due for some slight regression in that regard. As for college football, Jimmy, what was your play in Tennessee and Alabama?
Laid the 3 with Bama on the road.
I am taking the over in that game. I am also taking the over in the Georgia game. I think the offense in both of those games will be operating at peak efficiency. For Alabama, Tennessee, that is 56.5. I don't think that Tennessee defense is that good, and I do think Alabama's offense is that explosive. So that's all for me.
You reminded me of one last play I wanted to do. It should be a certifiable war crime, what we are doing to London tomorrow or on Sunday morning, I should say. New England against Jacksonville. 1-5 against 1-5. The total's 42. I will take under 42 points combined scored in that game. This has Thursday Night Football written all over it. I think it's going to be just a gross manifestation of football. I'll take the under on 42 there. But, Jake, one thing we learned from those plays, you're the only one with the real gall in the room because you're taking Purdue outright tonight. So we tip the cap to you, sir.
Listen, Purdue is going to shock the world. It's on national television, right?
I would assume so.
Under the lights in Ross-Ade.
Yep.
It's got Rondell Moore down the sideline vibes written all over it. I'm telling you. Oregon, okay, so Oregon beat Ohio State. It was at home.
Dylan Gabriel's fun. Like I understand he should be with how many years he's been in college, but he's a fun quarterback. Fun
By the way, I'll add another bet here. I'll take Ryan Brown, the quarterback for Purdue, over 178.5 passing yards.
Okay, nice. Eddie joining the fray to some extent there.
Well, right. I mean, that's possible because they may be down 56-0 in the first and have to start throwing, right?
That's the exact train of thought
now,
there, Jake.
What uniform is Oregon using? Do we know?
One of their 70.
I know.
I don't know offhand. I could try to dig for that for you here in the last couple of minutes of the show.
We talked about this earlier, but I'm curious of this, genuinely curious of this. Eventually, joining the Big Ten,
Ooh.
is that going to become a recruiting detriment for Washington, Oregon, UCLA, and USC? Because of the fact, is it possible that not immediately, but that after a few years, there just starts to become the conversation from players? Like Oregon, I would imagine a large percentage of their roster are kids from, young men, whatever you want to call it, from California, probably the Oregon area, like the West Coast, right? I think Phoenix sends a lot of players throughout the different typical Pac-12 schools, formerly Pac-12 schools. But when you're playing for Oregon, Washington, and in the old Pac-12, your furthest travel flight was, and the West Coast is, states in the West are much bigger than here. I get that, right? But if you're playing for Washington 5 years ago.
Washington,
that's right. But you have a game at Arizona State or Oregon or Arizona State or Arizona or Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the plane for 2 hours, whatever. Are players going to start getting fatigued by, man, I didn't realize when I signed up to play football for USC that once it gets into it here, and I know that they have the travel set up in certain ways that it's not like they're going to Rutgers every year. But at minimum, they're taking 3 to 4 to 5 hour flights regularly. Are players going to eventually get tired of that? I know that sounds crazy.
No, I don't think they will. I think that, because the argument to that would be, where do they go? And in most cases, if you're looking at Oregon, USC, or UCLA, for example, if you're a West Coast kid and those are the three schools you have highlighted, that's all the same conference. There's no way to get away from that anymore unless you're going to go to a smaller school. And then the flip side to that would be, well, you're simulating to an extent life in the NFL with those cross-country journeys. And for those kids that have the aspirations to one day get to the league, you're kind of just getting that already. So I think it's a fair point and it's something to observe, but I feel like at the end of the day, recruiting pipelines would continue to win out to the point that you're either going to want to go to the school with the flashy head coach or the school with the top rank or your school that you've watched your whole life versus I don't want to be on a flight for 5 hours.
Let me give you an example. Washington, okay, in basketball this year.
Mm-hmm.
On February 12th, they play at Ohio State on Wednesday. Then they play at Penn State on Saturday. Now, I'd assume they just stay out, right? But so either A, you're guaranteed to be gone from, at minimum, Tuesday until probably Sunday, away from campus, class, girlfriend, whatever, or you are flying from Seattle to Columbus on a Wednesday, playing a game, then flying back to Seattle, then 2 days later flying from Seattle to Pennsylvania, then flying back, you play Rutgers, and then a week later you fly to Iowa and then Wisconsin.
By a quick glance, it looks like
I would assume you are clumping them together and staying on the road, but that's a lot of time away, I'm telling you.
It looks like about 50% of their rosters from Cal, and then there's about 25% from Texas, and then you've got some Tennessee, Michigan, Colorado. I saw a couple Mississippi.
It's definitely more intense for basketball and like games where you're playing multiple a week. I will concede that, Jake, for certain.
Because you've got to be. It's like the old Big Ten.
Yeah.
When Indiana would play, they'd always have a two-step with you had a travel partner. So in the Big Ten, the way it used to be is you had another school that had the same schedule,
right,
like yours was, and so Indiana would go and they would always play Northwestern and then go straight to Wisconsin, and then come back. But it's just different when you're going that far away because you've got to stay theoretically just on the road. I mean, you're just gone a lot.
I'm generally always pro player. Pay the player. Take care of the player. The universities are making billions of dollars. It's ridiculous. Compensate the player. One area, I guess, where I would take a stance of, I don't want to say being against the player, but not caring as much about the player is this is kind of the life you've signed up for now. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. But It's adapt or die to some extent. Because there's talks about Super League every other year, Jake. Like, it's not going to downsize. This is what the sport is now. Either it's for you or it's not.
Oregon tonight going with yellow, kind of the yellow helmets with a green stripe and a green O on it, and then kind of a fluorescent green. The duck is on the shoulder pad, which is cool.
I thought I was looking at North Dakota State's uniforms.
It does look very similar, doesn't it? Purdue is going with the all-black coloring, which is good because I'm wearing a black Purdue hat. I mean, we're going all out.
Man. I need more of the duck on that uniform. I need that duck all over.
I'd agree with that. Now, that is the holy grail if I can get the photo with the duck. But I don't think I can get down on the field. Duck ain't coming up where we are. I'm crow's nest, baby. I'm way up high.
He might be walking around campus. It's his first time, right, at Purdue, West Lafayette. Maybe it's a world tour. I don't know.
Jake, what's your prediction for Sunday?
26-18 Colts win.
24-20 Colts win.
I went Miami 2017.
Eddie zagging.
Eddie, you got to be the outlier here. For what reason?
I think this game is very eerie similar to Green Bay. Green Bay's got a lot of guys that use in the open space. The Colts struggled to tackle. And I think that's the same recipe that Miami will go
Snoop.
with.
You love Snoop. You can say
I don't
it.
disagree
I don't
with
love
that.
Snoop.
Just
I just
getting
love
the
all the other
ball in
players.
their hands is going to be the challenge, right? I think Richardson, does enough, and they probably air it out a little bit, get a couple of quick scores, and then they're off and running. But we shall see. It's one of the things we'll talk about, obviously, on Monday. John will be helping you preview it. He's going to be doing so from Back 9 coming up next. Thank you for listening to Query & Company.